Ochelli Effect is sponsored by WallStreetWindow.com and listeners like you.
And now, the most underrated voice in all media, Chuck Ochelli.
April 12, 2024, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. This, the Ochelli Effect, live at the moment on a Friar's Day. Now, I haven't been doing too many live shows. This week, as a matter of fact, you might have noticed every single day something happened. Now, I've been recording all week, but live shows have not gone on all week. I had, look, to be frank with you, I have invoices on those recording sessions. So that's why I was prioritizing them. And on top of it, I had some cancellations. People got mixed up on their weeks, things like this. Mike Swanson will be away for the next 2 weeks, and others decided to bail. So guess what? There were no live broadcasts this week, except this one. This one that you can be a part of if you're hearing us live, and it is, let's see, about 13 minutes after 8 p.m. Eastern in that Eastern time zone of what we used to call America. Hello. Here we are, and we've gone to the stream live. There will be a little bit longer of a show today. Anyway, we'll go to about 10:15. But anyway, we're going to get in on our 2 hours, and you can be a part of it by dialing 319-527-5016. The number, once again, to join us on this particular night and talk about anything that's on your mind, whatever you saw this week, whatever you've seen the past couple of weeks, whatever you think is important. Did you check out the eclipse? How about that? How's that affecting people? What do you think about whatever's coming up? And also, just a quick reminder, I do have pretty large bills coming up. They do come up on the 15th of April, so that's Monday. And anything that you kick toward that, as a matter of fact, if somebody kicks in a special donation over the weekend of any kind, I will add to your zip folders, if you're already getting them, something additional that others are not going to get. Little special thing, little extra if you want, if you make any contribution over the weekend and help me get to my goal. Because right now, the unpaid bills are one small one and one large one, and I have most of the large one covered, but I'm a little short on it. So, paying for the phone lines, which, again, you can join and use, 319-527-5016. That's the small bill. And then the other one, which helps us distribute the show and keeps the free podcast going, we pay once a year. So anyway, almost all the money there, but not quite enough. And if you kick in, you will be helping us stay the course and keeping things rolling. Anyway, that is what it is. It is Friar's Day, and I don't have a lot on my mind today. I mean, we could talk about the death of O.J. Simpson. We could talk about the reunion of No Doubt at Coachella, if you like. Sometimes we get into music discussions here. We could talk about whatever's on your mind. You want to talk about how the world's about to end? Why not? Other things from the Trumposphere? Whatever you like. Let's go for it. The weird video that Marjorie Taylor Greene put up of her workout, was that last week or this week? I don't even remember. Does it matter? Is there any new dog bites from the Biden dogs? Does Biden know where he is today? Did he make an announcement? Am I losing my mind? Is Trump complaining? What's going on with the indictments? I don't know. We could talk about any of that, although I'm kind of sick of the politics, but it's not up to me. It's up to you. 319-527-5016, or send me a message, charles.ochelli on Skype, and I can call you into the show. Last week, no B. Pete. This week, I've got him, although he's live from a remote location in parts unknown at the moment, but with a pretty good signal. B. Pete, my co-host, my brother, how you doing tonight? Uh-oh. Did I lose him already? Let me check. B. Pete appears to be there. Let's see. Could he have been called away? If you're speaking, B. Pete, we're not hearing you. All right. Well, anyway, I know I have callers probably already. We'll go and check the phone lines real quick and see if B. Pete can straighten out his sound issue. I did want to give him a chance to speak first. But, brother man, we're not hearing you. I don't know if you're aware. Anyway, I'll type him a message, and while I'm at it, it looks like I've got a wireless call. So let's just take it and see what's on their mind. You are live on the air. I can't quite get through to B. Pete, but I think I've got you connected unless there's something wrong there. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you tonight, sir?
Doing good, doing good. So what's on your mind?
I'm just wondering what you may have heard over the years about OJ. I don't know if there's really conspiracy when it comes to him, but apparently people have written about it where he may have taken the fall. I don't personally believe that this is the case, but there was a theory that was going out there about how OJ may have tried to take the fall for his son. I don't know if that holds any kind of water. And the other thing I wanted to know is if you think that if the Bronco chase went on a little bit longer, if OJ may have actually taken himself out in the back of the Bronco, or if things would have just went exactly as history went down.
Well, in conspiracy culture, I might be a weirdo because I was asked about this the other day on somebody else's podcast, and you know what? We're not on AM and FM anymore, and I'm usually very polite during my regular shows, but what the hell? This is a loose thing on Fridays. I said bluntly, I mean, I pretty much figure OJ did that shit. I mean, that was pretty much him. Not saying that it's never a clear-cut case when it comes to a murder that is a crime of passion that usually has, twisted motivations, and there's lots of wild background to it. Nothing is ever crystal clear. Except one thing, almost always, it's usually if there's a woman killed, almost always it's the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend, the husband, the ex-husband. Sometimes the cops go after a guy like that unfairly, but that's because 9 times out of 10, that's who does it. Either a guy who was with her and lost her, a guy who is with her wants to get rid of her, or a guy that always wanted to be with her and never could get her. Quite often, that's who a woman gets killed by. So that explains Nicole. But OJ, I don't know. It's weird. I have friends even that think that this is much about OJ's son probably having done it for different reasons. What's that kid's name? Sydney, maybe? I think is that the kid's name?
No, Sydney.
I think it was.
Sydney was the daughter.
Oh, Sydney's the daughter. Okay.
Oh, the daughter.
Who is the son?
Yeah.
What's the son's name, B. Pete? Now, by the way, we have B. Pete back on the line. I don't know what was going on with the sound there, but B. Pete, what is the, I forget OJ's son's name, but Sydney is the daughter. What is his son's name?
Hold on. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, let's look that up because,
Yeah, Sydney was the daughter with Nicole Brown.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Justin was the small child at the time of the murder. He was younger than the daughter. The other one's name. Oh God, let's see. He had 5 kids. He had. Let's see. Let me grab my glasses.
Wow, I did not something registers weird to me that he had 5 kids even. But okay, I believe it. Let's see.
To be fair, he also wrote a book called If I Did It, so we got to take that into consideration.
Oh yeah, I was getting to that because that's the most entertaining part of this is the whole If I Did It book, right? And also he was found liable in the wrongful death suit. But again, a wrongful death suit does not have the same standard of evidence required to convict somebody as a criminal case, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, realistically, right. I watched a lot of that trial and I find it hard to believe that, that anybody else would have, could have done it. I mean, there's some weird stuff there. And here's the sad part too, is that the LAPD, being corrupt, planting evidence, also 100% believable. It's not like, oh, how dare you impugn the LAPD. I'm somebody who figures, if you got corruption or the moment that you're telling me the LAPD is primarily involved in an investigation, I immediately leap to suspicion just by default. And
well, Mark Furman didn't really do himself justice like when he testified either.
Well, Furman wasn't helpful, but I mean, he's not even the worst part of it, really. I mean, to me, the track record of the LAPD is way worse than the one guy saying the N-word. I mean, it's just
exactly.
I mean, just. RFK. What else do you want me to tell you? RFK. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it looks like Jason, Justin, are the two boys. Is that right? Jason and Justin.
Yeah. Jason is the oldest one. That's OJ had him with his first wife, and Justin is younger than Sydney, who he had with Nicole Brown Simpson.
Okay.
Arnell.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arnell was his other daughter from his first marriage. So Jason is the one. He was working as a chef at the time. Had been working at just one restaurant for like 2 years. But it's my understanding that when all this came out, somebody checked Jason's alibi. And I thought that his alibi, he was accounted for. So putting him at the murder scene would be kind of tough.
Well, there's that. And then there's also the problem with, I think it's, which one of the medical examiners that I've seen the medical examiner. You know what? I saw this medical examiner give a presentation at the WEC conference in 2003. And why am I having trouble remembering which Asian forensic examiner he was? But he was involved in this. He turns around and says, oh, this looks like bloody footprints, and the bloody footprints don't make sense if you're thinking it's OJ. Because he was looking at...
Was it Cyril Weck?
No. An Asian guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Henry Lee.
Henry Lee, there you go. It's Henry Lee and his weird assertions off of looking at the photographs, kind of knocked me backwards. Now, Henry Lee made some weird assertions about the JFK case, but then admittedly had to say, look, all I got was copies of stuff, so I don't know what to tell you. But he was part of one of the review board projects to take a second look at the forensic evidence. And he's looking at copies of stuff. I don't even think they brought him in to see the official autopsy records at the National Archives. And that was another weird episode. And that's what he was presenting on at the WEC conference in 2003, is that he was talking about, well, what I looked at, it looked like this, it looked like that. And I had a hell of a time understanding what Henry Lee was talking about, quite honestly. His English is broken. I mean, I'm not saying that he's stupid or anything, but he makes some pretty odd assertions regarding some of this forensic evidence that he gets a look at. And usually he's only looking at the photos, the secondhand stuff. He never, whenever you see him taking a second look at stuff, it's always weird. And he's one of the guys that people that believe that there was something else going on outside of OJ being guilty. He's one of the primary guys that people bring up. Hey, this guy said that there's at least like 2 people traipsing through the blood or something like that. I mean, it's a whole twisted story, obviously. And I got to tell you.
Well, Chuck, did he bring up the idea that there was a knife found in the cement or something in the foundation, like years after the fact? Because I think that's kind of what spawned that conspiracy.
No, what happened there was they were doing some construction. Somebody was doing some landscaping or something. I think it was the yard next door, but it was within a few feet of the property or something. Anyway, they found a knife while they were doing this landscaping. They sent it in. The forensic guys looked at it and said, no, this isn't the knife that did it. The case for the knife that OJ bought right before he left to go out of town, they never found the knife, but they found the box for the knife, and they say that based on that model of knife, it fits the wounds. So, there's a guy named Deal, a private investigator named, I think it's Ron Deal. He's the one that's pushing this theory that it was probably OJ's son, and OJ was just covering it for him. But it's kind of hard to explain the cut on his finger and all, and supposedly that happened by dropping glass in a hotel room sink crap. I think I think the guy did it. He got away with it. In fact, I heard an article today on the radio where they said that Gil Garcetti, as the DA, had pushed one for change of venue because he knew in Brentwood it'd be all white people sitting on the jury. So that's why he asked to have the venue changed to L.A. Because he knew downtown L.A. he was going to be pulling from a jury of blacks. And there was a couple other things he did when it came to the trial and processing and things like that. It was basically trying to help OJ out. they wanted to put him on trial, but he's famous, he's rich, he knows everybody in L.A., he's connected. He didn't think his chances of convicting him were that good. So I think he just tried to minimize his effort and move the trial to L.A., where he had an all-black jury to pick from.
Right. And I know
people were still getting over the Rodney King crap when this took place.
Well, true, but I know I'm a weirdo and all that, right? And so my barometer on the social standing of people and popularity and stuff usually don't go by me when it comes to, what's popular, what makes sense in modern or popular culture, because I'm usually like not in step. But it's strange to me because to me, OJ was famous, 15 years before this happened. He was a big name then and was no longer a big name. I mean, to me, OJ was like a C-level, B-level celebrity at best when this happened.
He's like a co-star in the Naked Gun movies, basically.
Right. I mean, you're in the Naked Gun movies. Okay, name me 3 other actors outside of, the main guy from the Naked Gun. Most people can't, except they'll tell you that, Priscilla Presley was in on it or whatever. But, I mean, look, you probably couldn't tell me the other regulars in that movie outside of, Leslie Nielsen, who is the main guy, But other than that, I mean, it's like that's not exactly A-lister work. I mean, what was he also in? The Towering Inferno, a couple other things.
Well, he was in the Hertz Rent-A-Car commercials before that.
Okay, so he's the Hertz Rent-A-Car. I mean, okay, fine. He's the Hertz Rent-A-Car guy. He's running through airports, and he was a football announcer for a little bit. But I don't even think they let him do that regularly. Did they? Did they give him a regular job as a football announcer, BP, or was he just kind of an occasional? Like, hey, we have former star player OJ with us.
No, it wasn't a regular thing. He did color, I think, one year for ABC. But he was also, big in the, remember the Battle of the Network Stars?
Oh, good God.
The sitcom people and all that. He was connected with that for a while. Now, his star had pretty much faded. He wasn't doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
He was just living off his NFL pension.
Right.
And whatever residuals he was getting from the work that he did do. Nobody was using him for advertising and that. He was kind of, I wouldn't say feeble, but at that point in his life, his arthritis in his knees had really affected what he could do.
Well, yeah, that was the other.
It was really tough for him to even play a round of golf.
That's what I was hearing about. And, and then they also showed the pictures of like his knuckles being swollen up and, which is clearly something that looks like rheumatoid. Look, a lot of arguments were made on all sides of this, right? But at the end of the day.
Oh, hell. You got to realize during the trial, that boy, he's dumping salt on it. A lot of that is just gnarled knuckles and everything. A lot of that was just retaining water from where he'd pump up on salt before trial day.
Yeah, maybe.
That jail food's kind of rough for you.
But there you go. I mean, when you're not eating partial sawdust on your plate, if you're lucky, the bologna sandwich ain't moldy, right? But I mean, look, it's the way it is. I get it. But I didn't think of OJ as the big star. And that was the thing that killed me is that like this actually raised his level of stardom, but then he's toxic. And it made all these other people stars like Lance Ito.
These celebrity golf tournaments and things like that, he participated in those. He might make, might make $500 a weekend to show up at a golf tournament or something like that. So,
but it's like
he had income. He was doing well, but he was kind of forgotten about, to be honest. He was out of the limelight for so long that when the news broke, people are going, O.J. Simpson, you got to be kidding me. O.J.?
Right, and that's the other weird thing is like he was almost at that point like some former boxers get to where it's like, they're there to open up a casino and you got to go look up somewhere or ask your friend who really knows boxing who the hell this guy is. And it's like, he fought, Larry Holmes once in 78. And it's like, okay, so this guy fought for the heavyweight so former heavyweight contender, Joe Caliglia. And you're like, who the hell's this guy? And he's there to like shake hands at a casino. I figured OJ was at about that level in 94. And I was out there doing my musician thing. And I remember including him as a joke on the flyers that I was putting out. Because we used to put like, different weird clips of things and just kind of paste them to the flyers, kind of punk rock looking. And I remember it was like, here's a bunch of, I put like Jeffrey Dahmer's face up there. Because it wasn't too long, that guy died. So he's dead. And he killed somebody. He killed people, obviously. And I put, like, Charles Manson's picture up on a flyer and stuff like this, like, to evoke all this weird heavy metal stuff. Like, here's a bunch of people that were involved in killings. And also O.J. And I put O.J.'s head on that flyer along with, right? But also, come to our show. You never know. Yeah, and I remember doing that, and that was before the trial was over. And I was running a record company in New York, and I spent a lot of time sitting around in the office doing paperwork. And what did I have was the trial on all day while I was doing that. Not saying that I was like absolutely glued to it, like, oh my God, I got to find out what's going on with OJ, but it was something, consistent to keep my routines running. And so
there were a lot of people that got their, let's say their start, not their start, but like Chris Matthews, okay? He worked for Tip O'Neill for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And suddenly, when the OJ thing happened, Chris Matthews started his show. And he was covering the trial just like everybody else. And it was wall-to-wall coverage of the trial, day, night, for the whole time that it went on. And then Court TV really picked up about that time.
Yeah, Court TV.
It boosted them into the spotlight. And they've been, they went off the air for a while and just came back on about 3 years ago.
Well, they
started Court TV back up.
Yeah, well, because they actually transitioned to something called True TV for a while. Yeah. And now they brought the courtroom stuff back.
Julie Grant, who's on Court TV now, she was a local newscaster in Winston-Salem. High Point area when I was living in Lexington, and she was on the local news every night. And I remember when they announced, this was 4 years ago, that she'd be leaving and she was going back to Court TV. And I thought, Court TV, hell, that's been off the air for quite some time. It was when they resurrected it. So that was 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
And it gave another.
When she left to go back to that.
Yeah, and it gave another hell of a springboard to the lady with one of the weirdest heads on the talking heads of TV, Nancy Grace. What the hell is wrong with her head? I keep asking. Nancy Grace got a huge lift, I think, from OJ, right? Like people were tuned in to hear
definitely
her post-courtroom analysis.
Her big thing after the OJ, she kind of came along at the tail end of the OJ stuff, but her big thing was the Peterson trial out there in California.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Lacey Peterson, when she ended up missing.
So she was on that.
She was going after the husband big time, Scott Peterson. And then there was another case here just a few years ago where Nancy Grace was just excoriating this guy. He ends up being found not guilty. And so her star just started plummeting right then. People were trashing her. You were talking crap about this guy for the whole length of the trial, and then come to find out he's innocent. And so she's shot to the top. Now she's on her way back down. I don't know what network she's tied in with now. Yeah. But she's one of those, I see her on the screen, I either cut it off or turn the channel. I just can't stand to listen.
And wasn't the one who's definitely gotten too much Botox, Van Susteren? Wasn't she also kind of?
No, not Botox, facelift.
Oh, is that what happened there?
She got her face pulled so tight, I bet her belly button is up in her cleavage now.
Oh, it does not look right anymore. it has not looked right in a while. I mean, I'm thinking that her pubic hair is about ready to become a goatee. It was pulled so tight, man. It's rough.
That was Greta Van Susteren. She was, what program? I can't remember the program she was on when she had it done.
I'll bet you $5.
When I saw her, I thought, well, they've got a new host.
I'll bet you
$5.
Like,
no, it's Greta Van Susteren. I thought, if she blinks, her face is going to crack.
Right, but I'll bet you $5 there's some Botox involved in that disaster too. I mean, I can guarantee it.
Yeah, probably to even things out. You'd almost have to Botox some spots because when you pull anything that tight, you're going to get an irregularity in the surface somewhere.
But it doesn't look right anymore. Like, I'm not sure she can properly have full movement of her mouth any longer. I mean, it's weird.
Yeah, I thought, who is this light-haired Asian that they hired? And then I looked at it and I thought, no, that can't be her. I mean, they had her face pulled so tight, I thought my TV screen was warped.
It did appear to change her ethnicity, the tightness of the facelift. This is true, yes.
Yeah, dude looks like a lady.
Almost, yeah. I mean, like, but she, and she was like not horrible looking to begin. Like, she wasn't like, oh my God, please go fix your face to begin with. I mean, she wasn't a pretty lady. She was okay.
I don't understand. She didn't look that old.
No, I didn't think she needed it.
She wasn't showing her age or anything. And I'm thinking, when she came back on with that face, I thought, I don't know who the hell talked her into that, but they should seriously consider putting that person in jail.
Yeah, you got to fire that PR person if somebody talked her into that, because, dude,
I couldn't believe it.
She got to go. I mean,
you look at all the people that back when OJ went on. I mean, it was the trial of the century, and I remember I was working for Department of Transportation when the verdict came in, and we happened to be in the office that day and had the TV on when it came in.
Right,
and just for the next month, the talk and some of the things that people were saying. And I'm just going, you couldn't have watched this trial if you come out with that attitude. If you've got that opinion on how things went, you didn't pay attention to this thing.
Right. And I'm putting our first caller on hold because we got a couple more, and I want to get around to everybody, and I'll get back around to you, caller number one, as soon as I can. But yeah, no, I wanted to hear from you on the OJ thing anyway, so he set it up nicely for us to go for it. And we got another, if you don't mind, unless you want to get into some other aspects of this, because in recent years, OJ kind of became a very short-lived phenomena on Twitter. And the funny thing is, you notice Elon Musk, even, before the transition to Elon Musk, it's not like he came on with Musk, right? He was on there before Musk got it, and then just had no impact after. Like, it was a big deal. Oh my God, OJ's going to be on Twitter. And he started doing short videos of like, hey, I'm enjoying my golf game, and like mundane stuff. And people are like, oh my God, how dare OJ be on Twitter? And I'm like, well, the guy served his time for the one thing. He's supposed to be making payments for his, civil settlement, and he was acquitted on the other. I mean, it's not like you can say, oh, what is Twitter supposed to ban him? You believe in free speech, but not for that guy because he got away with murder? Sorry,
yeah,
but
he surprised a lot of people, and then like you said, he just flamed out so quick. It was like, well, he's on Twitter, but he's not doing anything.
Yeah, nobody cared.
What was all the hullabaloo about?
He had his little hardcore following, and he kept that all the way. And as a matter of fact, only like maybe a week or two ago, or maybe it was last month, he was still posting stuff. A matter of fact, when somebody said something in the media about him, I forget, maybe they were saying he was already on hospice because he was dying. He put out a picture of himself or a video of himself, like sitting in his car going, does this look like hospice to you? Like trying to say, hey, the media is always lying about me.
Yeah, somebody had a story out there yesterday that the nurses and all that were hired to help him at home these last few months, they were all required to sign non-disclosure agreements. And I'm wondering if that's because, in some fit of delirium where they worried he was going to blurt out that he did it, and some nurse go and sell the story to the Inquirer. And but that's weird, though. I've never heard of that before. You're hired health help having to sign an NDA to be able to work there. But it's funny. I'm trying to still figure out after all these years what it was that made him think that the killer of his wife played golf, because he said he was going to track down the killers, and the only damn place I think he's looked is on a golf course.
Many a golf course.
Except for when he was breaking into a hotel room full of memorabilia that he said was stolen from him, and he ends up going to jail over it.
See, now, there's a sad thing, because as I looked at that case, to be honest with you, of course, backwards ass, convictions. What else is new in America? Welcome to the United States post 1900, I guess. Because to me, that whole thing with the hotel room where they got him on the kidnapping and what was it, false imprisonment or whatever else they got him on?
Yeah, kidnapping, false imprisonment, assault with a weapon, and then I think the larceny of the goods.
Yeah, to me, it looked like, honestly, the guy felt like these guys robbed him and he was going to try and get his property back. And it didn't need to escalate to this point where these kind of charges got pressed.
No, all he had to do was go to the damn hotel lobby and call the police department and go, hey, these guys in room 436 have got my stolen property. Yeah. Now, the cops would have gotten in there. He may not have gotten anything to leave, but at least the property would have been seized as evidence, and they'd have gone to court, and he could have got his stuff back.
Yeah, but, okay, two things. One, it probably would have immediately needed to be liquidated to help satisfy the Goldman family, for that verdict against him. But,
yeah, I heard he still owes them $100 million.
Probably, but
his estate still owes him.
Well, but what's left in the estate, if there is anything left, right? I guess if there's an insurance claim, the kids will have to get enough to bury him, and that'll be that. I don't know. I don't know how that all is going to wind up panning out. But to me, honestly, I felt like OJ was wrongly convicted of way too high a level of crime in that case. On the one hand,
no, if you go busting into a hotel room with a gun and you start threatening people, I think he got the sentence he got because it was OJ.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think if it was somebody else who did it, it wouldn't have been necessary to prosecute him like that, one. Two, he just kind of grabbed another guy. I don't even know if he had the gun, because that was a point of contention at one point. And, I mean, it was just such a crazy spur-of-the-moment thing that it was like, I don't know. It just didn't seem to require that. But I think somebody said, this is OJ. He got away with murder before. We're going to get him this time. I really do feel that way about the whole Vegas thing. But he went to prison for it, served his time, came out, right? I mean,
he served 9 years. He didn't do his total time.
Well, but who does, right? I mean, does anybody actually serve the entire time? Very few people, it seems like to me. There's always a way to whittle it down at least a little bit. Somehow, good behavior, something, right? And look, all I'm saying is I think that in that case, OJ was unfairly treated. But when it comes to the murder thing, I think he got away with murder. And I got friends who are like literally mad at me about this, not happy. Matter of fact, I know there's going to be an extensive Facebook message after this discussion on the show. Like the day after this podcast comes out, I'm going to have like multi-pages in Facebook messages from a couple of guys who are like absolutely insistent on the whole OJ's son did it and the drug dealers. And in fact, there's one guy that tells me it's the same drug dealers who actually committed the Manson murders. It's the same guys, the same cartel that's been in business in Los Angeles.
That's going to be a hard argument to pull. I mean, it's when you look at the testimony of the limo driver.
Yeah.
About what went on when he pulled up and the fact that OJ was running late. I'm sorry. You can argue the Mark Furman crap. You can argue the blatant racism, the systemic racism of the court system till the cows come home.
Which could all be true.
That guy cut his wife's throat and killed her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
But here's the thing. It could be that the L.A. cops are corrupt. It could be that the L.A. cops are constantly planting evidence. It could be that everybody involved was racist. Mark Furman is certainly a racist. And it still doesn't disqualify the reality that he probably just killed that woman and that dude. I mean, that's it. It doesn't remove it from it's not like because that's true.
Put the clarifier on there, probably.
Yeah, well, but I say probably.
I don't do that. As far as I'm concerned, based on everything I looked at in years of reading and looking, he did it.
It looks like that to me, but, I always allow for the possibility that I don't necessarily know the whole story. I just leave that, that possibility there. But if you ask me to cast a vote, he did it. Put me on that jury, he did it. Okay. It's just that simple. And it's not because, I just want to nail the black guy. No. Although there were people that would accuse you of that, and that was very racially divisive. Anyway,
another thing about that trial, though, is that a lot of people watch that. I mean, they would go home and they would watch it at night and see what went on, and they thought that that's the way that most courtrooms take care of things, and it wasn't.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The judge in that whole deal, he was nothing but playing to the cameras and enjoyed the popularity and the stars and the celebrities that he came in contact with. It was a circus.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely a circus, and there were brand new, Marsha, what was her name? Marsha, whatever, with the hair. I remember Marsha Clark, right? When they did the People versus OJ, that miniseries, I found that thing to be hilarious. because it was like all of the stuff that was going on, like a lot of people, John Travolta was in that. A lot of people thought, oh, that's like exaggeration. I'm like, the funny part is that as exaggerated as a lot of that stuff looks, it's not. It's like that is pretty much what was happening in the 90s there. Anyway, enough out of me and even enough out of you right now, BP, because I do want to get to breaks and everybody who calls in and get back around. Let's see who else we got on the line. I think we have Mr. Jimmy James on the line, who might want to give an opinion about OJ, but then again, he might want to change the subject. Of course, he died just a couple of days ago, OJ Simpson. So anybody want to give a memorial, what are you doing, in memoriam, a eulogy for OJ? Lines are open, 319-527-5016. You want to just come on and say, look, I know he did it, and I don't give a crap about all this other crap. You want to tell me how stupid I am that I don't believe in the conspiracy against OJ because it was time to frame OJ for some particular political reason? Whatever, hit me up, 319-527-5016. Jimmy James, I haven't heard from your fan club in a bit, but I'm thinking I might after we have this discussion, depending on what you have to say. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing all right. Why is my fan club for or against the juice?
I don't remember, but I do recall that when I got the massive message from the guy who gives me all the details and keeps insisting I need to interview a guy who he is very sure was directly involved in the murder. That guy, every time I get a message from him because OJ comes up on the show, I am then usually messaged by one of your fan club people about OJ as well. So I don't know I don't remember if they were like, he's guilty or not guilty or whatever, but something gets them going. So I know I'll get a Jimmy James fan club message soon. Did they ever start that Facebook group? Does anybody know? Do you know, BP? Did you see the Facebook group yet? I forgot to follow up on that. Did you? BP might be talking to his mute button again. Jimmy, go ahead. Tell us what you know, or if you want to change subjects, it's all up to you. Anybody, you can bring up anything as you call in tonight. So up to you, Jimmy James. As usual, what's up?
Well, I'm scared to piss off my club now.
Wait a minute.
So I'll just say...
No problem talking about Israel. No problem talking about terrorists. No problem talking about the dirty this or that or the filthy liberals that are destroying the country. All of that is free reign. I can't stand this person. I wish this one would be, would go and eliminate themselves from public life. We have criminals all over the place. You're willing to say all that, but I don't know if I should talk about OJ. That's an odd red line for you, Jimmy James. I wouldn't have expected that. Please elaborate.
Yeah, I think it's best that I just keep quiet on OJ.
A no comment from JJ about OJ. Wow. Couldn't have seen that one. Did anybody have that on their bingo card? All right. With that, Jimmy James, as usual, up to you. What do you want to talk about?
BP, did you figure out that little Watergate question I asked you?
Watergate. Was this a couple of weeks ago on the show?
Yes, because he wasn't here last week.
Right.
I think it was 2 weeks ago. I asked him, I wanted to know who gave Dorothy Hunt that money before she got on that plane that crashed.
Oh, right. Yeah, and I have no answer for that. I'll tell you honestly. But you did put that to BP, didn't you? If he had any idea about where the money came from. And what was there? Well, I mean, there's also speculation as to whether there was more money because they did find the one package of money, right? If memory serves me, they found like one package that might have totaled $5 or $10,000. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it started out $110,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's like Nick said. What do you mean $10,000? Where the hell's the rest of my money? Fire them all. I know what's going on here. Steal from the president.
Well, you definitely can't steal from the corpse of the bag lady or the bag man, depending on, gender, I guess doesn't matter. You can't steal from the corpse of the bag man and not return it to the guy who was, bagging the money. I mean, either that, you either complete the delivery or return to sender. You're supposed to. So, maybe that's the point of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people are always saying, well, look, all of a sudden he fired people. We put Eagle Crow in charge of the airplanes.
There you go.
I said, yeah, he's probably mad because there's 100 lights. Those FBI guys or whoever swarmed that plane wreck took that money.
Mm. Oh, and the Gerald Posner question you had asked a couple of weeks ago to me, what's funny is that, I do remember that he's in on the Vatican conspiracy. He's about, the Jesuit thing, or at least was, when he was talking to people some years ago. Now, I don't know if he's gone back into it recently, but that's a really strange one because the guy who's telling us that, we're really silly human beings for, believing that there could be a conspiracy related to the JFK case, wants to tell us about the ancient Vatican conspiracy. It just seems like these two things don't go together. If you're for the Vatican conspiracy, I can't see how you'd object to JFK, and vice versa entirely, right? Even if you don't necessarily buy all of it, you'd figure if you're for the JFK thing or you're for the Vatican, you'd have to at least entertain the possibility of the other. But oddly, Posner seemed to believe at one point in the massive Vatican conspiracy, and I don't know if that's still, something that I know nobody's inviting him on shows to talk about it lately, unless you found more material since, Jimmy James. Have you found any more material on that?
Not really. I just, at the time, I was listening, I heard him on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Discussing what is it called? The God's Bankers.
God's
I
Bankers.
I just remembered being so impressed and thinking, okay, now how's this the same guy?
Yeah,
it makes no sense to me.
It doesn't. He even was talking about at one point about the whole Vatican Bank. The Vatican Bank controversies, right? The guy who hung himself and the guy who absconded with money and the embezzlement and all that stuff, which did happen. It's not a matter of, that's all conspiracy theory. Some of that stuff is just, publicly known fact. Now, how deep it goes, how big the money really was, why people are turning up dead, some of that gets into the fringes and then you're into conspiracy theory land. But you can't deny some of those realities. And the weird thing is, a strange news story, I think, popped up today out of Italy. I don't know if you saw this already, but, this woman, they found her drained of her blood, and apparently they were part of some vampire underground group, and she ends up turning up as a victim over there. And frankly, I'm not surprised. Italy is a very strange place when it comes to stuff like this. I mean, there are some deep, dark, ancient, crazy, ugly things that go on in the land that they call Italy, which wasn't even a country up until, 150 years ago. Quite frankly, Italy wasn't even a country, actually. But the various kingdoms and city-states that they brought together to form this thing they call Italy is a rather culturally deep land that goes a lot deeper than what most people are willing to talk about, and there is a lot of stranger-than-fiction stuff that goes on there, in conspiracy culture, but also just in the twisted and odd webs that we do weave as human beings. Criminal stuff, I mean, there is the entirety of the different criminal groups that end up forming the mafia, and people know about that, sure. But there's a lot of deep, dark criminal stuff that originates from that territory one way or another. And, some people don't like it when I bring it up, but Vatican City at the center of a ton of it. And there's a lot of intrigue connected to the church and the papal industry and so on and so forth. I mean, there's just a lot going on there, one way or another. So
right up Up until there was in Italy, the Pope ran a lot of those kingdoms, didn't he? Like, they actually used to collect tax and all that, right?
Well, either that or they dispatched a cardinal to sort of oversee areas like as if they were governors. And there's a lot to be said about that, where, quite frankly, the idea about kicking up the pyramid, that concept that people know from, organized crime, TV shows and movies and stuff, that concept probably originated with the Vatican. Eventually you got to pay up to the Pope. Just saying. It's just the way it is. The pyramid works that way with the Catholic Church. I'm sorry, but and then people like to point to all the kitty diddling and all that and the moving around of priests. But I mean, talk about tip of the iceberg. I wish that was the worst part of what's gone on. And like I said, there are some very Christian people that get very angry with me when I bring this stuff up. But, it's reality. It's not all conspiracy theory. But what's strange to me is a guy like Posner, who is willing to poo-poo everybody else's conspiracy theories, is in on the Jesuit thing, is in on the fringe stuff related to the Vatican, or at least was. And I don't know if he's talking about that anymore, or if, somebody told him, hey, that doesn't look good when we're sending you out to defuse JFK stuff. Maybe you shouldn't do that. I mean, especially because somebody's going to bring up to you at some point, Kennedy was a Catholic, and maybe that's got something to do with it. And by the way, there is a school of thought out there among the Jesuit assassins theory, I think they call it, regarding Kennedy and how, it's the same group of people that's been around for, a couple thousand years, assassinating all sorts of leaders, and Kennedy just happened to be one of many that the Jesuits took out one way or another. Which again has elements of reality in it, but I don't, they probably have never heard me discuss the Jesuit theory on this show, not in depth, not any more than a mention, because it doesn't carry a lot of weight with me. But what's odd, again, is that it kind of goes in the wrong direction for Gerald Posner, who should be the anti-conspiracy guy at all times. So that is a weird point to bring up. Anyway, B. Pete, I don't know if we got sound with you or not. I'm going to go check and see if I got a message here. Oh, okay. You know what? We might not have B. Pete on the call right now at the moment. That's why. So sorry, Jimmy, I can't get your question answered. But I am going.
What happened to B. Pete?
Yeah, but because he's not on the call at the moment, he had to step away. So I'm going to hold your question. And actually, we're going to take a break. And I'll put you on hold, Jimmy, and I'll bring you back as soon as we get back from the break, see what else you have on your mind, see what else B. Pete might have to say, and try to get the answer for you on that question you asked a couple of weeks ago. And for those of you listening to us live, because it's just about 9 p.m. Eastern now, here in this place we used to call America. As a matter of fact, the clock just hit it. 9 p.m. Eastern. Here on April the 12th, of 2024, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. Indeed, that is the case here. You can call in. 319-527-5016. It hasn't been released yet, but I also recently did a podcast called Naughty by Nature, a Nature Boy podcast, and I don't know if that's been released yet, but that was an odd discussion, and some people might want to ask about that. Maybe not. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you want to talk about something else. Did Joe Biden's dogs bite anybody else? Is there another device that Hunter Biden has gotten a hold of? Are there any more charges against Trump? Did anybody else come out and say they were molested recently? Do we have any other things going on out there besides OJ's death and the reunion of No Doubt? Are we getting a new horror franchise or rebooted one this year? Guess we'll see. Stick around. The Ochelli Effect will return. And you can join us. 319-527-5016.
WallStreetWindow.com. Gold, silver, the stock market. WallStreetWindow.com. Perhaps you're invested deeply. Perhaps you're not in deep enough. Maybe you're thinking about getting started. WallStreetWindow.com. Michael Swanson, the brilliant author of The War State, understood these trends professionally for many years, and now he gives you the benefit of his knowledge. WallStreetWindow.com. Go there now. Go there now. Go there now.
Ochelli.com.
The War State by Michael Swanson explains the great national transformation that took place and put the Kennedy presidency in the context of the times and reveals never before published information about the Cuban Missile Crisis. President Kennedy would not have been assassinated if he had been president 200 years ago. His assassination took place in the context of the Cold War and the rise of the national security state. Before World War II, the United States was a continental republic. In the decade that followed, it became an imperial superpower. Generals such as Curtis LeMay not only wanted to invade Cuba, but knew that there were short-range missiles on the island armed with nuclear warheads that they could not destroy because they were on mobile launchers. Their invasion could have led to a third world war, and they wanted to go to war anyway. The War State by Michael Swanson reveals why and will show you what President Kennedy was up against. For more information, thewarstate.com.
Quick reminder during the break that you can join us live if you're hearing us 3 minutes, after the hour of 9 p.m. Eastern, in the part of the United States that they still refer to as Eastern, in what used to be the United States. So on the 12th day of April, 2024, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar, you could join us live, 319-527-5016, or reach out to me, Charles.Ochelli on Skype, and I will call you into the show live. Anyway, that's how you can join us, and we'll be back after the second half of this commercial break.
The Ochelli.com radio network.
Revelation through conversation.
Ochelli.com.
Let 'em know. Let 'em know. Let 'em know. Got to let them know. I'm bringing all shock like I'm K-Rock, sipping Bud Light at the drag show. I'm bringing all shock like I'm K-Rock, sipping Bud Light at the drag show. Erroneous method, the world's worst professional provocateur. Hit them like it's 2000 something and Becca's back on tour. You never really wanted me anyway. Alcohol turns me into your enemy. I'm Yosemite Sam with some Hennessy. I used to think that bottle was the remedy. Picked it up once or twice after I let it go, but finally had to let it be. I used to roll with a fat bitch. She would give me a left tip for some literacy. I mean literally, not figuratively. I mean literally. We all want chances, we take separate stances, but learn to let it go. We learn to let it go. Oh, we take control. Heroes. Just a couple. It's okay if they have flaws. I wouldn't have stayed sober without Sam Tripoli Zero. Talking to Chris Graves on the pod. A month later, he's talking to Charlie Robinson on the pod. The people he influenced me. Word to Chuck Ochelli. Sorry. Sorry, I haven't done it yet. I'm gonna give you those beats. But we the people's influence like drops of water in the sea. And it's sad and so plain to see that blatantly the powers that be, they've taken corruption to an incompatibility with reality. I got no problem with conspiracy becoming an industry as long as we stay hard on fact. Spread no fallacy, go forth with no malice. Casually ghosts produced for years, stacking up that wise wolf gold. Ain't your average G. I'm a bastard with no mask, but the method had one long before the Rona, so don't get mad at me.
The views expressed by callers, co-hosts, or anyone else who happens to get on the air at Ochelli.com do not necessarily reflect the views of Ochelli.com or Chuck Ochelli, and we are not responsible for any stupidity which might ensue. Thank you.
Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, I'm interested in the truth about the JFK assassination.
Right. Well, what do you want to know?
Judy Baker's wild claim, Oswald girlfriend, she knew Ruby and Barry, cancer weapons. Really?
I imagine I could claim I have 4 wheels. It doesn't make me a wagon, but okay.
Oswald was on the kill team and trying to prevent the murder of John Kennedy. Come on now. Has a real expert on the JFK assassination looked into her claim?
Go to Amazon.com, enter Judith Baker in her own words. You'll get results for a digital copy of a book where Walt Brown utilizes her own words and the known evidence in the case to get at, well, a different perspective, let's say. You can get Judith Barry Baker in her own words from the author himself, signed if you request it, by contacting Dr. Brown at KIASJFK@AOL.com. It's a fun book, and it actually dissects the many, many fantastic claims. Judith Barry Baker in her own words.
Thank you for all the great information.
That's why your mother got a wooden leg with a kickstand.
I'm terrified. I'll listen to you Republicans. Listen. You want the people in history.
Those are very sketchy at this moment. We don't know precisely what happened. We don't know the sequence. First of all, the president... back, left side. I'm feeling so good. Just then, I coughed. And I had a handful of bright red, frothy blood.
And he said, I think I've cut the inside of my mouth. And I said, let me look. And it was pretty profuse.
Nuclear holocaust. You know what uranium is, right? There's a thing called nuclear weapons and other things. Like lots of, you know what uranium is, right? Bad things. Things are done with uranium, including some bad things. Nuclear holocaust.
Ochelli.com.
By callers, co-hosts, or anyone else who happens to get on the air at Ochelli.com do not necessarily reflect the views of Ochelli.com or Chuck Ochelli, and we are not responsible for any stupidity which might ensue. Thank you.
Get ready for the Ochelli effect.
Going to Chuck Ochelli.
Second segment of the Friday night open mic here on Ochelli.com, Ochelli.com radio, the Ochelli effect. My co-host B. Pete is with me, although he's away from the mic at the moment. You could be with me, though, at the mic right now if you call in. I got a couple on hold and looking for more because I'd love to get some diverse views about just about anything. Whatever's on your mind, 319-527-5016. That's 319-527-5016, the number to call and be part of this. Or you could reach out to me, Charles.Ochelli, on Skype. Ask me to, and I will call you into the show. How about that? So, Jimmy, sorry, I don't have B. Pete back at the mic yet, but he will rejoin us before the show is over. So when he does, I'll have him answer that question about Watergate if he indeed has an answer for you. In the meantime, let's see who else we got on the line. One of them just went away as I was clicking on him. So I don't know what happened there, but you were an unidentified wireless caller. It looked like a New York area code at a glance, but I don't know because it's gone now. I'll get a report later. By the way, also doing a little fund drive. If you could help us out, we could pay for the phone lines and finish up paying for the account that helps us distribute the free podcast. Just a couple dollars short. I mean, I've got most of $250 ready to roll, but not all of it. And that's what I need in total to get the thing done. But I don't need anything like that, just a few dollars to finish it out, pay for the taxes and whatnot. And the phone bill is a cheap one because I pay for extra features so that we have 100 phone lines open. We never need 100 phone lines, but I have them. They are available, 319-527-5016. And so far, what have we covered? OJ, the rise and fall of court TV. What's been going on lately? Not much. We haven't talked about that at all, have we? No new bites from the Biden dogs. No new bites from the Justice Department. No new Trumposphere stuff so far. Let's see what else could be happening. Is there any more murder and mayhem? Oh, by the way, there are war fairs going on. And the war fairs are not necessarily meant to coincide with your county fairs, but how fair is war? Not very, especially not to the people who get caught in the crossfire, right? So that's going on in a few places. How deep are we into Ukraine and that occasion? It's more than 2 years, but is anybody keeping track anymore? Does anybody know about the live fire incidents going on in Africa? Is anybody aware of what might or might not be happening in Europe? Oh, by the way, have you heard about recent troop movements? I have not. Is Austin, the guy, our defense secretary, how's he doing lately? Any more surgeries he's got to go to and not tell Biden about? Or maybe he did tell Biden and Biden forgot. Anybody check the old man's Depends lately? Which old man? Could be many. RFK Jr., how's his campaign going? I just got a email from him still explaining that he's in search of Secret Service protection. Although I don't think he has a valid chance at becoming a legitimate nominee anywhere. Kind of not pleased with that, but it is what it is, isn't it? And should we even check to see what's trending on Elon Musk's private, allegedly free speech platform? I just don't know. B. Pete, are you back with me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so you might have missed it, but Jimmy James, I'm going to bring him on the line first because we have two callers on hold, and Jimmy was asking a question when you had to duck away, and not like you were ducking Jimmy or anything. You were called away for something. But reality is he had a question for you a couple of weeks ago related to Watergate, and I don't recall the question, but maybe we should get him on, refresh the question, and see if you ever got an answer to it. What do you say? All right. And I tried to go into the whole thing about Gerald Posner, and there is a weird thing that Posner was covering. Oh, yeah, I did discuss that while B. Pete was away. But not all that important. I don't even need to bring you up to speed there. Oh, by the way, when I went to Twitter, there's something about the New York Mets, a rocket from a polar bear. I don't know what that means. Something going on. I guess I'm following the Mets on Twitter. Am I following the Mets? Yeah, I am. I'm following the New York Mets on Twitter. I'm almost surprised that I do. But still do. I guess one day I'll watch some baseball again, or maybe some boxing. Every time I go to X, by the way, I do get told what is hot as far as the live broadcasts. Does anybody know what's trending? Let's see if we do. If I go to my profile, let's see if we'll just get a quick what's trending, what's hot. No, I don't have the trending thing anymore right now on the side of my Twitter feed. That's weird. Anyway, who cares? Doesn't matter. Let's get Jimmy James on and continue the conversation. We still got the better part of an hour left. So, Jimmy, maybe you could refresh that question for B. Pete, and he could get to it for you. What do you say?
All right. My question was, is it known in history who gave Dorothy Hunt the money before she got on that plane that crashed?
I don't know that they have ever found out the source of the money. Apparently, she had $10,000, I think, in her purse, but she had another box of money, and I don't know if it's ever been sourced.
Right. Well, I brought up the recovered amount that, they said they had about $10,000, and Jimmy James and I speculated about maybe somebody said, yeah, go get the rest of it. But then again, maybe that's just what was allowed to be inventoried, right, with the collection of the crash site. And who knows where the rest of it went or how much the rest of it was, or was the rest of it in a suitcase, or was it on another carry-on? Did they buy a seat for the money bag? We don't know necessarily, do we?
No, and I mean, that's been one of the, long-standing mysteries of the whole thing, where she got the money and exactly who was it for.
Well, as for where she got it and, where she got it, okay, that's difficult. But who was it for? I mean, I think almost anybody would agree that if she was picking up cash at that point, that was meant to help keep the Watergate burglars, at least paid. Whether they were in prison or they had legal bills or whatever, it was meant to, keep them happy and keep their mouths shut about something larger than what they had already been exposed to.
Illegal contributions to CREEP, the committee to re-elect president.
Yeah, but see, the Hunt family would have been more into self-preservation mode at this point, right? So I'm thinking, I don't know if it's still CREEP business because her husband couldn't do it. Maybe, but I'm thinking there also would have to be a special bag of money for the rest of the collaborators regarding Watergate. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Or was it hush money? Was it money that was going to go to those that were sitting in jail to keep them quiet?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean by the payoff for the rest of the Watergate guys is, keep your mouths shut. Here's the money to keep your family running while you're locked up or stuck in court or unable to do your other work because you have a media spotlight on you. One way or another, this is, just to keep you set up so that you don't go ahead and spill the beans and get a payoff that way, right? Or get a reduced prison time.
But at that point, though, I mean, when did Dean start singing? Because the gig was up. Once Dean started squealing, it didn't matter what they did hush money-wise or keeping people quiet because, Dean gave them everything that they needed. And I think what G. Gordon Liddy referred to him as the rat. I think he called him the rat the rest of his life.
Well, I don't know, because Dean couldn't have possibly given him some of the operational details because he wouldn't have been in on some things directly, right? You're talking about his public testimony? Because that's in 73, I think. Let me take a look at that, actually. Let me go look.
When was the plane crash? What year was when?
Well, first I was going to look up John Dean and exactly when his testimony went public, but let's get a date on that, though. Go ahead.
I think the plane crash would have been 72.
Okay, before the hearings and all. Because Dean started rapping.
Was like early on.
Yeah, Dean started squealing long before, he offered any public testimony. He was behind the scenes. That's how they knew they had the president, because they had Dean. He was singing like a canary.
Okay, so specifically, Dorothy Hunt's plane crashed on December 8th, 1972. Okay, now, as far as John Dean and his public testimony, it looks like that's June of 73.
Yeah, see, he was singing long before then.
Well, he was talking, but his public testimony, right, the thing that they put on TV, that's in June of 73. Now, as for when he was talking and when he was actually giving out the information and when that was hitting the newspapers, well, it's kind of hard to explain because there's stuff coming out that's not attributed to people. Was this, Dean being an inside source at a certain point before public declarations came out, from the different prosecutors and this kind of stuff? Or was it, you know what I mean? So you got leaks from the committee, you got leaks from the White House, you got leaks. It says leaks all over the place. And then you have other stuff happening during the impeachment hearings in, 74? Right? Because he won the election in 72.
Yeah.
And then I guess the impeachment pressure was at its height in 74. I don't know. It's different. Let's see. The Watergate files, Senate hearings in February of 73. See, there's February of 73, which is virtually right after, because, Congress is on break in December, comes back, and everybody gets sworn in again and all that in 73. But it's an off year, so it's not the big year for the changeover in government, but still. New people are coming in 73, and they're just barely in the door, and then the Senate hearings are happening in February.
Yeah.
And that's Sam Irwin is the chairman. Yeah. Irwin's the chairman. John Dean. Okay, so Dean is testifying even back here, it says. But he testifies in March. Okay. So he testifies in March of 73.
Dean had been... He'd been singing long before that.
Well, yeah, they had to know what it was he was going to present in public before they made the show of bringing him out in public. So obviously his, he was already deposed previously. And, so it's not like they didn't have that information until he was on TV.
Well, if it's my understanding, Dean went to them and said, hey, I'm here CYA. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Dean was worried about his own prosecution. That's the only reason he started singing.
Well, of course, because
Gordon Liddy brought out. He said, when he thought that he was going to have to catch any crap for it, that's when he started singing like a canary just to cover his own butt. And he threw everybody under the bus.
Well, obviously, because Nixon turns around and tells him, look, go write a report on all this stuff, and this way you'll be on the record, and what he took it as is you'll be on the record explaining everything, which means, guess what? He knew it all already. So he tells him, why don't you go to Camp David and go write up a nice report for me?
Because he was what? He was White House counsel. Wasn't that his official job?
I guess, was he a special counsel to the White House, or was he the lead? I forget what his title was.
He was Nixon's lawyer, so I don't know if he was the president's lawyer or if he was, he was always described as Nixon's lawyer, but I think he was the White House lawyer for the White House. I think that was his position, and he wasn't about to go down for any of them.
Yeah, well, but again, I think because when Nixon told him to go ahead and write that, he knew that was like, okay, so I'm going to write down all the facts and everything, which means that I would be the guy who's most informed on this, which guess what? Let's see, White House Special Files Staff Member, the man who helped bring Nixon down after Watergate, John. Let me see what his actual job title was. I almost thought it said special. Let's find out. Let's just do the dumb thing and go to Wikipedia, right?
Yeah, he could have been special advisor, but I know he was always described as Nixon's attorney.
Yeah, because he had a job with the campaign and started Watergate. Okay, he is literally called the White House counsel.
Yeah.
Met with this guy, okay, and he's meeting with Creep and this and that in late March. Okay, so Mitchell, Democratic National Committee, was a link to cover up. Yeah, okay, so he's actually described as White House counsel in 72.
Yeah, because a lot of the leaks in that were actually coming from John Mitchell's wife, Martha Mitchell.
Well, that's a whole other story, which, by the way, there's been a couple of interesting, let's see, Dean volunteered a position for Richard Nixon's presidential campaign in 1968. The following year, he became an associate deputy in the office of the Attorney General of the United States, serving under Attorney General John N. Mitchell, with whom he was on friendly terms. In July of 1970, he accepted an appointment to serve as counsel to the president after the previous holder of the post, Chuck Colson, became the president's director of the Office of Public Liaison. Okay. So, yeah, that's where Colson switches jobs with Dean. And he was in on it because he was working for Mitchell. And Mitchell had to get the hell out of there because Martha was causing all kinds of problems. And, So, okay, but look, it's an easy thing to get confused because there was like a conveyor belt of people that started switching jobs around through the Nixon administration. From 68 to 72, you have quite a bit of a game of musical chairs going on. But meanwhile, he had responsibilities with the campaign. He had responsibilities with Mitchell and all that stuff. And meanwhile, I doubt that he was like the mastermind behind this all. But I think that was going to be the intention. Like, okay, you know what? Let Dean go down for it. And maybe we'll shut this off. You know, maybe we can end it at Dean. I think that was the idea. But, you know, I could be wrong about it. Anyway, sorry, Jimmy. I don't think we have a definitive answer, though, for...
But we will research that because I'm curious too.
Yeah, no, but I think no matter what we do researching it, there may be a dead end there. There may be a literal dead end where it's like, yeah, you're never going to know really where the money came from or how much actually was there and everything else. I think that's going to be one of those mysteries that you're never going to quite get around, you know? But that's my opinion.
He likes to talk.
Who's that?
He's
Dean?
From what I have read or heard, there's been people that interviewed Dean. He doesn't give a lot of interviews, but I was reading, this was a few years ago, that somebody had talked to him and found out that he's still changing his story to this day.
Well, you know what? I would be interested. It is a possibility. He's a talking head for CNN. I think he's got a permanent job over there. But I'm wondering if there's a way to reach out. Yeah, they constantly bring him out. Okay, so John Dean, you know quite a bit about presidential scandal. Talk to us about Donald Trump. They do it all the time with him. I'm wondering if I could somehow make an inquiry and see if I could get him, because I'm sure he publishes a book every now and then too. See if I could just snatch him up for a podcast interview.
That would be a good one.
That would be a good one to get, I think. I don't know. I'm going to make an honest try for that. I don't think I've ever tried for John Dean. Let me try for John Dean. And if I can get him on the show, Jimmy James, maybe we'll get some interesting answers, not necessarily truth out of the guy, but we'll get some answers of some kind. What do you think?
Yeah, he might know where the 10,000 came from.
Yeah,
I'll bet he does.
Maybe he does, and maybe he's old enough that he'll slip of the tongue, and maybe I'll get it. What do you think? That would be something.
Want me to find? I'll send you all of his info, Chuck. No problem.
Yeah, send it to me. By the way, the guy from Saturday Night Live that you wanted me to look into, no response yet.
Yeah.
And I left a voicemail. I left a voicemail on a phone number, and I've sent an email already to a contact that's supposed to be in charge of his bookings. Okay, so I don't know, but we shall soon see. Okay?
Well, it'd be awesome if you could get him on here.
Oh, no, that would be a hell of a fun interview. I'd love to talk to that guy. I think he got a raw deal, actually. He's one of the guys that should have gotten a whole lot more out of his Saturday Night Live career than he did, and I would love to hear from him. You know what I mean? So, you know.
Mr. Morris, Mr. Garrett Morris.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks to him. You know, after all the
last I looked, yeah.
And the thing is that I always will appreciate that him, Gildna, there's a few people that people don't realize that they had to basically keep the show going while Chevy Chase and Murphy, or not Murphy, but
Murphy's
PM there.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all took off, and Aykroyd and Belushi, they were all doing movies, and these were the guys that kept things going for 5 years.
Right.
I got a lot of respect for them.
My favorite Garrett Morris. You're good.
I ever saw was the first time they did, the nightly news on Saturday Night Live, and it says, as a public service to our hearing impaired viewers.
Yep, that was what I was going to bring up.
Garrett
exactly.
Morris will repeat tonight's headlines, and he starts screaming tonight. I died laughing when I saw that. And as far as I'm concerned, that's one of the funniest damn bits on that whole show.
Oh, yeah, because they put a little bubble down on the bottom of the screen. Like they.
He's from the school of
The school.
Yes, deaf. He's from the School of Hard Hearing.
Yeah, he's from the New York whatever Academy for the Hard of Hearing, and the little bubble comes up.
Story.
Yeah, and the little bubble comes up like it would for somebody who's going to give you sign language, and he puts his hands around his mouth, like cupping them to, make a megaphone out of his hands. And he goes, and tonight's headlines. He just starts screaming. That's hilarious.
That's got to be one of the best.
That's one of the best things ever to just come out of that show, right? Like in a short bit. They did it a few more times, and Family Guy did something like that the one time too. They brought him on to do a thought bubble. And it was and to help me explain this, we have the professor from the New York School for the Hard of Hearing, Mr. Garrett Morris, and he did the same thing on there, except, Brian's trying to tell Meg that he's not into her. So, anyway, and he just starts screaming at her, I don't have feelings for you like that. He's just screaming at her, and it's hilarious. Anyways. Guess you had to be there. Maybe I can find that clip before the show's over, but we'll see what we can do, Jimmy James. Further research necessary, and Dorothy Hunt, definitely something to look into some more. The whole Hunt saga is worthy of further examination, although I do not buy St. John Hunt's, JFK conspiracy line, but what are you going to do? St. John Hunt has some real stories to be told, and they are pretty wild about, helping his father literally get rid of evidence in the middle of the night and stuff like that. That stuff I believe. And trying to help his father write, some of those spy novels and things. Yeah, I believe all that. But the JFK thing, I think at best it was hypothetical, and at worst it was purposeful disinformation from a guy who made a living out of disinformation, being his father. And again, his deathbed confession not really coming on his deathbed, but still something to be examined, not because it's valid, but as an exposition, as a prime example of how it is you feed BS to the public and make it look legitimate enough that plenty of people will chase that red herring with that fishing pole all day long. And I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever actually seen a red herring. But anyway, human expression. And yeah, that came up on this week's latest Star Trek episode. But anyhow, enough out of that. Let's go to our first caller. And nobody else has joined us. 319-527-5016. That's the number to join us. If you want to get in on this live on a Friday night, it is an open mic, so you can bring up anything you want. I also see that a brand new World Next Week has just been released, according to my emails, because I am looking at my emails throughout the show. And it's about 35 minutes after 9 p.m. We're going to go a little bit after 10 p.m. tonight because, from what I'm told, no Age of Transitions. I think Aaron's kid is off on a traveling soccer game or something this week. But don't worry, the Age of Transitions and Uncle the Podcast will return. So we have a little extra room for Ochelli Effect tonight. We'll go over just to make sure you get a full 2-hour open mic experience on a Friday night. So BP,
I do have a quick question.
Sure. I was just going to ask if you had anything else to add before we go to back to our one caller that's waiting there besides you.
Yeah, quick question. I sent you that link for that YouTube video talking about Dr. Birx, who was, along with Fauci, the one that was actually taking care of all these reports and everything from the CDC.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you got a chance to watch that.
Yeah, I you know what? I took a look at that, and then I got sidetracked by another video that popped up on the side of it. But, do you want me to play some of that tonight, or?
Well, no, I was just wondering. I mean, that'd be something that we could possibly get into on another show on some of the stuff that has been coming out since the pandemic hit and some of the responsibilities. Yeah. A lot of people put all the blame on Fauci for some of the stuff that went on. But yet you had this lady sitting there writing reports and policy and was really the one that was pushing for the school closures and other things that went on. And basically, I mean, they said that, they were just pulling this stuff out of their butt. I mean, there was no rhyme or reason for them doing it other than they felt like, well, that's the best thing we can do under the circumstances.
Right. But
it's almost like it was designed, to caused the massive failure that it did.
Yeah, see, but as per usual, right? You're not meant to follow those rabbit trails, because if you do, you might actually get at who's actually responsible for stuff and who actually did stuff. That's the amazing part. I was listening to people being interviewed. Also, this is the thing that caught my attention on the sidebar, by the way, is that there were a bunch of people where they were like, "Can you explain, who's actually responsible for the pandemic responses?" And people have all kinds of crazy ideas about who shut down the country, who did this, who was asking for this and that and the third thing. And none of them want to realize that it's a coordinated program. Look, when you take a look at the fact, I'm sorry, but I was looking at JP's rundown today too, which, by the way, excellent. Newsvandal.com, okay, the rundown. I love how he collects stories from all over the internet and creates a narrative for you. I'll tell you the most amazing narrative, though, and it hurts me to my guts. Lunchables. BP, you're familiar with Lunchables, right?
Oh, God, I've eaten those things 1,000 times. My question is, where in the hell is all this lead coming from?
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
It's ham, crackers, and cheese. Where is this heavy lead content coming, unless it's coming from the packaging?
Well, look, when it's not real food, the first problem is, when you allow substances to get into food that isn't food, problems begin. And when you have all sorts of adulterated and chemical substances that are there to make, things preserve longer, that are there to, give certain colors to things and everything else, you get into an area where, indeed, there's a bunch of elements here. I mean, remember the red dye that was poisoning people? There was red dye in the food just to make certain things red. The red M&Ms.
Yeah, because when I was in Switzerland, there was a list of about 250 products from the U.S. That wasn't allowed to be sold. One of them was Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
And it was because of the red dye that they used in the red Fruit Loops, little things like that. But I'm sitting there thinking, Lunchables have been around for years and years and years. And I think the problem came when they were allowed to be used on school lunch menus. But suddenly they started doing all this testing, and I haven't been able to find a peer review of the review. But my question is, you're looking at processed ham, you're looking at crackers, and you're looking at cheese. Where the hell is all the lead coming from, and how were they ever allowed to be sold with the amount of lead that they're claiming is in there? Now, granted, they're using California standards for these things. So there in itself is a problem. California's got a lot of restrictions on stuff that nowhere else in the world has.
Well,
but I'm just curious, between ham, crackers, and cheese, how this high lead content could be there, and I'm wondering if it's in the packaging and not the product itself.
See, I get what you're saying about the packaging, but this is where you get BPA and all these kind of leaching things that get from the plastic into the food. And I understand that, and I feel you on that. I'm not saying you're wrong, but you know what the primary problem is? I'm willing to bet if somebody really takes a good look at this. Notice that, okay, your processed ham, your processed cheese, your processed crackers, what is the one element in the manufacture of all those things coming together in that package is the water. Now, if they're using municipal water supplies that have lead in them, guess what? Okay. See, that's the other thing.
But most major food processing places have their own filter system in place.
Yeah, but
they just don't use tap water. They use water that's actually processed in the plant before they ever start manufacturing the food.
Well, you would think, but a lot of the packaging that I've read says we use municipal water sources. So
yeah.
If you're using a municipal water source, and by the way, in case you don't know what that means, it's the local tap water, right? To wherever the hell their factory is. Well, if your factory's in Michigan, you're going to expect lead. And that's the other thing that came along with the rundown, right? Is that, look, let me just read a couple of headlines out of this thing. I mean, the top headline, right? As bans spread, fluoride in drinking water divides communities across the U.S. Okay. New study estimates disturbing percentages of young children exposed to lead in major U.S. cities. Study finds nearly 70% of Chicago's children under 6 are exposed to lead-contaminated drinking water. Consumer Reports investigates finds high levels of lead in Lunchables. Toxicologist, nutritionist, on what to know about potential health risks of Lunchables. This is from ABC News, Food Safety News, by the way. This isn't conspiracy sites. Yeah,
the biggest thing I've seen about Lunchables is their high sodium content, and they are very high in sodium, but that's in your processed ham, you're going to get that.
But salt is salt is a common element and a risk element that's in foods if they're processed. We know this, but lead is not something you expect in your ham and cheese crackers, okay, like you said.
No.
So, but again, when you're looking at the water side by side, okay, U.S. EPA limits toxic chemicals in drinking water 23 years after Rob Billett raised the alarm. Okay, 30 more drinking water systems in Rhode Island looks like may need to filter out PFAS under new EPA rules. More than 600 water systems reported PFAS above new EPA limits. Is yours on our map? And that's from USA Today. Okay. Report.
That's the number one issue that we're dealing with in our state right now is forever chemicals and PFAS. I mean, it's
right.
It's everywhere.
And here we go. Okay, toxic soup. Experts break down waste management struggle faced by rural communities. Okay, that's one problem when you got the, you have the landfills nearby and they're out in the rural areas where nobody pays any attention to them because they can't stink up the neighborhood, but still it's going to leach into your water table. Anyway, let's see, environmental racism. Okay, let's skip over that. Asbestos victims. Okay, skip over that. I mean, you just keep looking at it. The stuff that ends up, even when they're talking about your pet flea and tick treatments, contain pesticides that end up washing into the environment. Here's how. That's from theconversation.com. Anyway, my point is that there is so much going on with the water supply and Lunchables. The scary part is that Lunchables are a very, very super common thing that, like you said, they're in school lunches, but they're a common, I mean, for the past 25 years, I would say, they are probably a staple in an American kid's diet. There's no parent that I know, even the most, veggie-headed, what do they call them, crunchy parents in the world. We have all fed our kids Lunchables thinking, well, what's the worst that happens here? It's generally, and, now they have pizza and this and that and the third thing, but generally it's crackers, some sort of meat product like bologna or ham or, something like that. Sometimes they have chicken, like a chicken roll kind of, slabs. But, I mean, it's ham, cheese, and some sort of meat product, and you think to yourself, well, that's just a sandwich on a cracker, and that's all there is to it. It's not that big a deal. Yes, it's a shortcut. Yes, it's lazy parenting. But when you're on the go, and it used to be cheap, by the way. I mean, they used to have these things for about $1 a pop, and, when you got them on sale, now they're at an outrageous price. But, I mean, cheap, easy, the kids want to eat them, and it looks like to you in your brain, well, look, I'm giving them some, some of the fruit and, I'm giving them some of the bread and cereal group with the crackers. I'm giving them some of the protein with the meat, right? I'm giving them some of their dairy with the cheese. If I take this and I give them an apple, then I've done my job for giving them some nutrition at least, and I didn't have to kill myself to do it. And every parent I know has fed their kids this. Now, if you thought for a moment that you were, going to be cramming lead down your kid's throat while you're feeding them, the 500-600 Lunchables you probably fed your kid as they grew over their, very early years here, I don't know a parent who hasn't in America given their kids Lunchables. I mean, think about that, man. That's ridiculous. It's like anyway. When you tell me that this stuff is accidental and incidental, I'm sorry. I can't see it as anything other than by design. But anyway, maybe it's just me, and maybe I am a conspiracy theorist. What can I say? But let's get back to who we had on the line and let them talk about what they want to talk about. But the Lunchable thing I wanted to bring up. So maybe we go back, to OJ again or Watergate, whatever. It's on you, caller.
No, we don't have to go back on OJ. I got cut off a couple of times. I apologize.
No worries. Apparently you and somebody else got cut off, too, because I saw another caller come up, I think in New York, twice now. New York caller, call. I'll interrupt whoever's talking. If you're having trouble getting on or you're getting mad because you're waiting, I'll even cut off a caller to make sure the New York caller gets on, whoever you are. I don't even know who you are. But anyway, sorry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, no, you can call. You can cut me off. This is Chris Graves from Massachusetts. I don't necessarily believe in the OJ conspiracy. I was just wondering what everyone on the panel thought about that conspiracy. I didn't really put much stock in it, but
some people do.
OJ,
some people are seriously convinced that there is a guy who I consider very smart, a friend of mine even still, coincidentally from New York, but I know that's not who's calling me, is Pierce Redmond, who believes that OJ's innocent.
He's pretty well known too. Yeah.
I mean, Pierce believes it. It's one of our weird little conversations every now and then. It's the point that we make where it's like, yeah, well, look, I can agree with you on 100 things, but dude, OJ innocent? Sorry, dude. Come on. Really? And no, he thinks so. He does. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I only wish. No, that's fine. No, I only wish that the late, great Norm Macdonald was still alive to be able to comment on OJ's death, because he had quite a bit to say when OJ was alive.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Jimmy James brought up the late Dorothy Hunt. I did a little bit of research on Dorothy Hunt's plane crash, and I don't know if this is just total conspiracy, central when it comes to her plane crash, but I thought she had like $100,000 in a briefcase. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It might have been $10,000, but there was also some weird stuff around her crash where there may have been some evidence that there were local police and FBI agents in the neighborhood surrounding the plane crash too. I don't know if anyone else on the panel had heard about that. I sent that information that I was able to find, very little because it was in the early 70s. But I was able to send some of that information to someone like Donald Jeffries, who writes books about these kinds of things. And has anyone else heard the rumors of possible foreknowledge of this plane crash of Dorothy Hunt?
Yeah, I've heard about this. I'm actually fairly convinced that there was people on the scene a little too quickly. I'm familiar with the evidence about that. And yeah, it does seem rather fast on the response as far as the locals getting there. Okay, I'm not saying they were waiting on the site.
So it's not just me. So you are familiar with that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, and I'm familiar with the allegations that there was more money. But what I know that was found, that was inventoried, is that $10,000. Now, is there more? Was there more? Could there have been more? I mean, even if you don't think that somebody stole it or was trying to cover something up or anything else, it's very possible there was more money. But was it ever found? Nobody has ever come forward with any proof that any more than that $10,000 was found. That much,
now, Chuck,
as far as I know. Yeah.
Chuck, have you heard? Has BP or yourself heard from St. John Hunt about his mother's death?
I never got into that with the email exchanges that I had with St. John Hunt. I never got into his mother's death, so I not directly know. But B. Pete, have you ever heard from St. John Hunt about his mother's death?
No, St. John Hunt is one of those peripheral individuals that I've not really followed up on because I've not really heard them say anything that I thought was credible.
Well, he got nasty with me on Facebook, and I was having an email conversation with him, but he got nasty with me on Facebook because I knew the name directly of somebody that had sold him something.
Okay.
And that ended the conversation because he got really nasty with me and got kind of personal. And I said, look, I don't want to get personal about this. I said, but I've looked into you enough to know this. So take it easy. And that ended our conversation, honestly. And I wanted to talk to him about his father. I didn't ask him about his mother.
Yeah, because when I contacted him, he wanted an appearance fee, and I said I'm just doing basic research, so I don't have a budget or anything. And he got nasty with me.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think to do a remote, I'm thinking it was I think it was $500, like basically to do a phone call.
Are you kidding?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he wanted.
$500 to me too.
Yeah, see,
no, that lines up. Yeah.
No, Chris knows that's exactly what he wanted. $500. So I guarantee you, when he went on,
go piss up a rope.
When he went on Jesse Ventura's show, I promise you, somebody wrote him a check for $500 because that's what he wanted. And he even referenced the fact that was the standard fee that the National Enquirer paid people, which is also true. When you got a feature story in the National Enquirer, whether they came to interview you or you wrote it yourself, and you were, some sort of exclusive for them, even if it wasn't their, their front page, the $500 was the standard amount, and that's where he got that $500 figure from. And that's what he requested for doing a remote, for doing a phone call, $500.
And that's the same amount that Stuttering John wants too, $500, which I always found funny.
Well, he didn't charge me, Stuttering John, to come on my show. He was promoting that book, and he did not charge me.
Yeah.
But
well, damn, I'm gonna have to start looking into co-host fees.
Yeah, sure. Listen, if you can get paid, tell them for a minor additional fee, whatever you get, for a minor additional fee, maybe I'll join you. Tell them, hey, I'll get you a pair for a discount. What do you think? Let's just say you get, theoretically, I'm not saying put this price tag on it, but if you can get $100, tell them for, $150, I'll get you 2 guys. What do you think? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's I with all these people on the periphery of history. St. John Hunt, regardless of the stories that he's got about his dad, was on the outside. Right. And I would think that, if he wrote a book and he wanted to promote his book or something like that, he'd be willing to come on something. But just to pay somebody $500 who really has no claim to history whatsoever, it just seems ridiculous to me that organizations would pay that to someone who's so far out on the periphery that you really have to question anything that they tell you.
Well, he's gotten it before.
It's just amazing.
Well, but then again, I don't blame.
My whole thing was
go ahead.
My whole thing was to talk to him about his mother. And not even his father, his mother's death.
Yeah, but the thing is,
he still wanted $500.
No, it's $500. But look, I don't blame a guy for saying, you know what, if they're going to pay me, I'll pay me. Get what you can get. I don't even mind these guys who do the cameos. You know about Cameo, right, BP? Yeah. Like, there's a lot of people on there that we can pay, a few dollars, and they'll record a video message. Generally, it's like, you want some celebrity to give you a personalized birthday message or whatever, here's a fee. And there's people on there as low as $25, and then there's people on there for $2,500, of all sorts of different levels of fame. I actually considered paying, what was that guy's name that was Trump's guy for a little bit? Mooch, the Mooch, what was his name? Scaramucci. That's what it was. Scaramucci. I'm trying to remember the Italian name there. But, remember the Scaramucci showed up and he was the press secretary for a minute?
Yeah. For about 5 seconds.
Yeah. I was going to pay him like $100 just to just throw a bunch of insults at me. I thought that would have been funny, but I never have that kind of money to blow on something like that. So I didn't do it, but he's up there on Cameo. It's, cameo.com, I think. You can hire different levels of celebrity, all sorts, wrestlers, you name it.
Well, I'm going to have to start
work for $25 to $30.
Yeah,
I'm going to start promoting myself as the most famous, non-famous co-host in the world. And you want me, it's going to cost you $100.
Sure. Hey, listen, if you can get it, get it. What can I tell you?
It's crazy.
Like I said, but
Chuck, I thought it was very odd that he wouldn't want to talk about his mother's death and anyone that may have evidence that would show some kind of I know this goes into conspiracy theory, like in the trenches or whatever, but there was evidence that there was some kind of foreknowledge that there were FBI agents and local cops in the area that were like almost as if they were real. They were aligned to where the plane would crash.
Well, yeah,
I know that sounds
kind of
weird.
Like, yeah, no, it does. Look, I'm not saying that I could definitively say that that's what happened, but it looks like there were FBI guys and cops, that were basically told, look, gather together and be prepared because somewhere in this general area, very soon, Dorothy Hunt's plane is going to go down. It does seem like they arrived fast enough that somebody would have had to have told them that because they were right on the spot.
That's what I thought. How old was he when his mother died?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think he's somewhere near my age, but he might be older. Let me take a look at that.
Yeah, look at his age because he may not be.
I think he was a young child, BP, like in 72. I think
he had to be young because I was 12 in 72. He may be in a position where he doesn't really know that much about his mother's plane crash.
That's true.
Well, here's the deal. He was apparently 18 in 1972, so I was off on that. He was 18 in 1972.
Oh, really? So he was an adult. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought he was like 5.
No,
okay.
He was
All
like,
right.
See, he was a teenager helping his father dispose of evidence. And the evidence he claims was part of the Watergate thing. And I believe that story that he tells about that. And he was a teenager at the time, so it makes sense. But in says in the summer of 1972, St. John Hunt was 18 years old, living in Washington, D.C. On June 17, his father, E. Howard Hunt, came bursting into. Yeah, here we go. There's this whole story about, him showing up and being like, you got to help me with stuff. And the other thing about him is he was a musician and not really making
He was in a band, yeah.
So I think he was under the impression that once he got out there with his, father's deathbed confession, that it was going to help propel his musical career. And even with that, nobody really picked up on it much. I mean, there was like a brief time when people booked him in some clubs and things like, hey, come see St. John Hunt. But it
was around like 2005, right? And it wasn't even a real deathbed confession either because he ended up living for like another year, right?
More than a year. We could look it up and I get you the time frame, but I'm sure he lived a couple of years longer than that. It wasn't like he died even a year later.
Rolling Stone claimed it was a deathbed confession. It was like 2004, 2005, and that was not correct at all.
Yeah, E. Howard Hunt. Let me just take a look at this.
He got paid quite a bit for that.
Well, what exactly was the confession?
Well, according to these, tapes that he was releasing pieces of at a time, right? He's laying out this whole thing. Hunt is laying out, E. Howard Hunt is laying out, well, I knew this guy and he knew this guy and these guys were working with LBJ directly and this is why Cord Meyer, I remember Cord Meyer was a central figure, Mary Meyer's husband.
And wasn't the code word the big wedding? Or was that a Muhammad Atta? Am I getting that mixed up with 9/11? It was like something like the big wedding.
The big event. The big event is what it was.
Yeah, because that's what Judith Baker was harping on, that she told everybody that was the catchphrase long before, Howard Hunt.
Well, E. Howard Hunt kept using the phrase the big event, but I don't think it was a code name. Yeah. It's just the thing that he was saying about it was
Judith, tried to twist it into the secret code.
Yeah, well, he did and she did, twisted it into this is the code word. But no, it was just like the big event.
So I got that wrong then.
No, it's the big event is what it was. I remember that. That was the big event. And I'm going, big deal. The big event, that's nothing. That's not a code word. Let's see.
But I think it kind of got lost in the shuffle because I think they tried to say that September 11, 2001, the code word that Osama was using to his mother on the phone was like the big wedding or the big event too. So it kind of blurred the lines.
Yeah, there was something about a wedding, right? At some point, people were talking about a wedding on September 11th. Yeah. And that may have indeed been a code that was being discussed between people. But that's a little different. Let's see. He began to write it down, the names of the men who participated, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to look for exactly when it happened. Let's see. This is the Rolling Stone thing.
But Rolling Stone and the media tried to claim that E. Howard Hunt, it was a deathbed confession, and like you said, he didn't die for another year, and he really didn't reveal that much in that tape.
Right. I mean, it was really strange. Well, but that's the thing is that, see, St. John was going around saying, well, look, I got more tape. And I'll release it all.
He didn't have any more tape.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think he didn't. But he was showing you selected pieces of this video and playing the audio on like Coast to Coast AM and all that. You know, for like a year.
And with Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura was the big draw for that whole thing.
Right. And then he got on that show Conspiracy Theory. Sorry.
But what specifically was the confession? That somebody specifically was involved or I mean, what exactly was
E. Howard Hunt, who was like, E. Howard Hunt pretty much was, he pretty much lost his mind by that point, right? He was like in almost 90, and he was trying to claim that he was a part of this big operation. And there was no way to really substantiate that, right, Chuck?
Well, yeah, it was like, look, I was a part of this thing, but I was on the periphery of it, and here's the real players, here's how the organization was laid out, et cetera, et cetera. And he was born in 1918, and let's see, died in 2007. So... yeah, so he was, let's see now, if he would have made it to 2018, then he would have been 100 years old. So 11 years shy of that. So he's like 89 years old. He had an amputation. I think he's missing one leg at this point, right? And he is in a hospital bed, and I think was suffering from pneumonia that they thought he wasn't going to recover from. And he did, is the thing. So when did that happen?
Did he actually name names?
Yeah. Like I said, Cord Meyer was a big name in there. You know,
I think he mentioned LBJ, but that's an easy go-to, though.
Yeah,
just saying Lyndon Johnson,
LBJ, and a bunch of people. It's like, you know, this mix that you could sort of make a family tree out of it if you wanted to, and say this person leads to this person who leads to that person. Here's your CIA liaison. Here's your military people.
But Chuck, at that point, that all these characters were already named for like years by that point, so anyone could have told E. Howard Hunt on his so-called deathbed, and there's no way to really substantiate it, right?
Well, there's that, plus the hints from the way that Hunt was saying this. I mean, it sounded to me, and this is the impression I got, it sounded to me as if somebody said, look, how would you write this spy novel if you were to use real people, and how would you write, you know, the spy novelization of JFK's murder? Well, here's how I would do it, and here's how I would do this. Because if you listen to the phrases in some of this stuff, it's clearly a speculation or something that he's putting together that isn't like matter of fact. Some of it he says things matter of factly, but then again, if you start telling a story and you say, okay, let's theorize together and figure out how this could work, somebody might say, well, this guy definitely kills this guy. So, you know, but that doesn't mean that he did it. It just means that in my scenario, this is the way this would work. And it almost sounded like he was laying out a scenario, and I have been told by more than one person that was literally him laying out a book. That it was meant to be a book, one of these.
So basically, he pulled an OJ with a "If I Did It" book long before OJ came up with an "If I Did It" book.
Yeah, basically.
Right. Because because I'm not saying his son did it, but anyone could have went into his hospital room and fed him this stuff because it was already like part of the quote unquote official conspiracy theory. So just having him on audio tape, people are gonna be like, oh, we can take this to the bank. You know, see Howard Hunt.
Yeah, and at this point in time,
and he was already like almost 90, right, Chuck?
Well, he was already very sick. What was going on is his family, different elements of his family, because he had, you know, kids after his family with Dorothy, I think. And what was going on is he had different elements of his family arguing over who needs to take care of him. So at this point, when this tape is made, St. John and that contingent of the Hunt family has him. I think he was at that point arguing with his sister, who's named Kevin, if I'm correct about this, I think he's got a sister named Kevin. And I think she was...
Yeah, it was a male name.
It's a male name, but it's a woman. And no, there's no transgenderism here. It's just an odd name. I think...
Right.
Kevin Hunt, I want to say.
You're right. You're right.
Anyway, I'm looking it up just to make sure I'm right about this, but Kevin Hunt, I'm pretty sure.
You name your son St. John, Kevin is not too surprising for your daughter.
Yeah, so
right.
I believe it's Kevin. Anyway, Kevin Hunt was arguing with St. John because she was saying that St. John wasn't responsible enough to take care of their father. That kind of thing was going on. So, and that's a typical family dispute. So I know that was happening. And during this is when St. John has him on video and later plays audio for people from the video of his father in a hospital bed at home. And this is what's going on.
And that's what was on. That's what was on Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory. Was that video you're talking about?
Right. They used part of it on there, but most places, even on conspiracy theory, I think they used the audio from it instead of the video for some reason. And he went on.
No, you're right. It was audio. Yeah, at the end of the episode. Yeah.
Right. And he even went on Coast to Coast AM, and they played portions of it saying, look, this is a very serious clip. And like I said, he was repeating a lot of names over and over again. And it was like... he was talking about how Cord Meyer was, pretty much pissed because JFK was banging his wife and whatnot. So, of course, Cord Meyer would be happy to be in on the conspiracy. This is according to E. Howard Hunt, right? Who, as you point out, was rather sickly, was rather elderly at this point. And, what did he really mean? Was anybody actually questioning him on this? Was he speculating? Was he trying to write a new spy novel, one last one before he goes, so he's got, something that's making money for the family after he dies? I mean, there's a lot in play here.
You can't substantiate it. Basically, right?
No, it's not. No, you can't substantiate. I mean, there's certain portions of it that make sense, but again,
there was the audio. The audio got to RollingStone.com, but the video, like you're telling me, like you're saying, the video did not get out there that much. It was basically just based on the audio, and he was very sickly based on the audio, the video that they actually did release.
Right. Right. And
has anybody been able to verify the audio that's actually Hunt's voice?
Oh, no, it's him.
I don't think so.
It is him.
Is it him?
I'm certain it's him.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm certain it's him. I'm certain that he said a lot of this stuff. But as for the context, as for, like I said, can anybody prove to me that this wasn't just let's structure a book? No. And as a matter of fact, again, some of the context clues that are in there are strange. It's not like he's telling a story and he's saying it, this is a fact, here's what I'm backing it up with, here's why I know it. All the time, it's weird little things in there when you listen to the clips. But I'm very sure there's more than one YouTube video out there that collected together the clips, because I know there was like a very long one out there a while ago that had like almost all of it together in one place. And it was just he was trying to sell it.
But the problem is with St. John Hunt, you don't know what you're getting because you don't know about the ulterior motives, right?
Right. And we don't know exactly what he was trying to do, except he was actively trying to sell the story. And there did end up being a book out of this whole thing, but I doubt that was the ultimate goal, to just get a book out there.
There was a book. Okay. I personally, I've been a researcher for a while. I'm not the best researcher, but there was a book, and I did not know that. Do you know by chance who wrote the book? Like, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like, what? Do you know the title? Like, because.
Well, there is one book.
I was always questioning St. John Hunt.
Yeah, there's two books that purport to be written by St. John Hunt. One of them is called Dorothy, and the other one is Bond of Secrecy.
Right.
Bond of Secrecy, excuse me.
Bond of Secrecy.
I had to think about it. Yeah, Bond of Secrecy, I think, tells a lot of the stories about what I was talking about before with him destroying evidence when he's a teenager and that kind of thing.
Right.
the Dorothy thing obviously is supposed to be focused on his mother. Now, in all fairness, I have not read Dorothy. But
I haven't even heard of it. Okay, I'm going to look it up after the conversation right now.
Yeah,
okay.
I read excerpts from Dorothy, but I've not read the whole book. Okay, just saying.
Just circling back to what we were talking about, Dorothy's plane crash. Does he go into that? Do you know, by any chance?
In the book?
Yeah, because I never heard him come out and talk about, because that plane crash was very suspect, in my opinion, and maybe it's just my conspiracy tinfoil hat or whatever, but I haven't heard him talk about that, and I'm not saying he didn't. It's actually first right now. You're telling me that there was a book called Dorothy, and I got to look that up right now. Do you know by any chance if he got into that? I would assume, and maybe I shouldn't assume.
The plane crash
that he.
Yeah, I happen to know. I do happen. Odd that you're asking me questions I actually know the answer to tonight. But odd that it's either in Dorothy or it's in a book that he co-authored with Roger Stone, which is
Roger Stone. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Called The Bush Crime Family. That's the name of the book, right? The Bush Crime Family with Roger Stone and St. John Hunt are listed as the co-authors.
Okay, because as far as Roger Stone goes, I thought Roger Stone only went into the Clinton crime family. So this is new information that I had no idea about. Okay.
No, Roger Stone, matter of fact, the appointment that he was supposed to come on my show, he wrote a book about Jeb Bush. He's written books about a lot of stuff. The Kennedy assassination. He's got a couple of books about that, I think. He's got.
But I knew. I know about that because he had the thing with Donald Jeffries doing the forward for one of his books.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that Roger Stone only concentrated on the Clinton crimes against women and things like that. I didn't know he actually got into the George Bush era of that.
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it, but there is that book, and I can't remember if St. John Hunt talks about it in that book or in the Dorothy book, but he does cover the plane crash. It could be in both. I haven't read these things in some years. I don't remember what year this came out.
I'm going to search it out. No, I'm glad you brought that up because I thought he only concentrated on the liberal, Clinton side of things. I did not know he went into the Bush side of things.
Well, no, I mean, and again, he was also attacking Jeb Bush while Trump was running for president. He wrote a book called Jeb that probably nobody bought because who cared? And by the time he got the book out, I think Jeb was out of contention, so nobody cared. And
I'm guilty of that. 100%. I did not know he wrote a book about Jeb.
Yeah.
Okay. All
right. I remember it's got a blue cover. They sent me a copy. Skyhorse sent me a copy. This is back when I was still on their good list. So they sent me.
No, at the time, Jeb was making the rounds with the alternative media with the conspiracy crowd. I remember that whole thing.
Right. So it just so I had booked. Okay, so I booked Roger Stone. I had him on about the Clintons, the Crime Against Women book. And that's a red covered book. The Jeb book was blue, had a blue themed, I can't remember. It was called, in big letters, it said Jeb on it. I remember that much. And then my dog got a hold of it and started chewing on it. But I was going to bring him on the show to talk about it. I started reading it and I never got to finish it. And then he stood me up and didn't show up for his interview. So that's what happened there, and then he never returned another message from me. Yeah.
All right, no, I appreciate you bringing that up because I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
And like I said, that's at least two books that I know of that are supposed to have been written by St. John Hunt. Now that doesn't mean that he didn't have a ghostwriter or whatever else, but he's credited with writing the two books and then also being a co-author with Roger Stone. There might be another book by. What's his name? The same guy who published Judy might have actually done another book with him. What is the name of that? Trine Day.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Trine Day might have published another book with St. John that's outside, or maybe one of those books is published by Trine Day. Look, I can't remember all of these details perfectly, but Let me just look into that real fast.
No, I'm just glad you're bringing it to light because I thought he only concentrated on the Clinton crimes against the women. Look.
No, I don't think it's Bush crimes against women necessarily. It's probably like, Bush involved with cocaine trafficking and stuff like that, and the SNLs. Probably, the savings and loans and stuff like that.
Which goes back to the author, not James Hetfield from Metallica, but there's another James Hetfield. Mm-hmm. Or Hatfield, rather, that died a weird death in like a motel bathroom, I believe. And he was covering a lot of George W.'s cocaine usage in 2001. I don't know if you remember him. I don't know if that's going off into the weeds or not, but
no, I remember that too.
Sounds familiar.
You know what?
As Fortunate Son.
Here's the funny thing. As I look up the Dorothy book, it looks like that one is published by Trine Day.
Trine Day. Okay.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that Roger Stone wrote the foreword to it, according to Amazon. So here you go.
to the Fortunate Son one with James Hetfield?
No. Dorothy, the book Dorothy that I brought up to you before.
Oh, Dorothy, the Dorothy one.
Yeah,
okay,
I remember.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I remembered the book, but I decided to look it up to see, and it turns out that was the one that was published by. Remember, I said there might be one published by Trine Day. That one was published by Trine Day.
That's right. Yeah.
And also, It says on the bottom of it that the foreword was written by Roger Stone. So that one's called Dorothy, an Amoral and Dangerous Woman, the Murder of E. Howard Hunt's Wife, Watergate's Darkest Secret. Guaranteed the plane crash is covered in that. So that must be.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's good to know.
Like I said, I read these things maybe almost 10 years. Yeah, it says it came out in 2015, so I probably read it in 2015. You know what I mean?
And it had St. John's participation, possibly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, best I can do for you.
All right, I'm going to look into that.
There you go. So,
I didn't mean to take over the airwaves so much, but a couple of these books I hadn't even heard of, and I probably should have. So I'm going to look into that now.
Yeah,
so
and I'm looking at.
Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, here's a funny one too. I look up Bond of Secrecy, and the foreword there is written by Jesse Ventura.
Of course. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and
just out of curiosity,
go ahead.
How old is Jesse Ventura now?
Wow. Well,
he's like 72 or something. Yeah.
No, he's pretty old because he was kind of an older looking dude, I thought, in the late 80s as a wrestler, right? He wasn't like spring
steroids in the hard living.
Yeah, but he wasn't a spring chicken in the 80s when he was like a wrestling announcer, right? Let's take a look here. American politician, actor. Let's just do the Wikipedia look.
I think Jesse Ventura is almost 75. I could be wrong, but yeah, he's up there right now. Yeah.
Let's see here. When was he born?
Because he went to Vietnam, so, I think he was born in 54. I could be wrong. So my mother is almost 70 in, a couple months. So
says here,
I think Jesse Ventura is, 72.
Yeah, it says here he's 72, and he was born in 1951, I guess.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes him 9 years older than me. I'm 63, so, 72.
There you go. Well, that's and Vietnam, right? Good
Chuck,
point.
You remember he used to go on Howard Stern, and he had American conspiracies, and he had 9/11 books in the late 2000s and everything.
Yeah. But the interesting part about him, in my mind, it should be easy to understand his age because my father was born in 1950 and also served in Vietnam, so that makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, he was born in 51. So he's a year younger than my father would have been. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
And you actually had dealings with Tyrell and Jesse, if you don't mind me asking. I think we talked about that in the past.
Yeah, I never dealt with Jesse. I did deal with Tyrell briefly, but not Jesse. I wanted to deal with Jesse Ventura. I wanted him on the show. But
he was kind of giving you a hard time, right? His people. I don't know if I'm telling tales out of school here, but he kind of gave you a hard time in terms of like trying to interview him.
Yeah, apparently Tyrell had found that I said something or wasn't. I don't know. I had done something wrong, according to Tyrell, from what I understood. But what are you going to do? I mean.
No, but Maria Heller, she was able to get Jesse on. It was a very kosher interview and pretty pleasant from what I remember. It's going back like 10 years.
Well, up until very recently, she was talking to David Icke once a month, too, and I could never get David to come on my show. You know, just because they go on with Maria doesn't mean they come on with me or vice versa. So, you know.
No, and to your credit, Chuck, David Icke, from the last time I looked into David Icke, he's like supporting like Big Pharma now, apparently. Like, I could be wrong, but I think he was supporting a lot of the COVID drugs and things like that. It could be way off.
I don't know. You know what? I can't say yes or no to. I don't know. I just wanted to talk to him, Actually, what I wanted to talk to David Icke about is really historical, and that was more about, Jordan Maxwell pretty much introducing David Icke to America. I wanted to talk to him about that because that's part of the story, too. But Jordan's gone now.
Jordan Maxwell? No, I don't know. I honestly, I used to have different shows and everything. I was a researcher and everything. Did David Icke play a big part in Jordan Maxwell? Like at a certain point? Like this, this is new information to me.
Other way around.
I did not know that.
Other way around. Jordan.
Oh, no, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan had kind of introduced David Icke to American audiences. Yeah. At a certain point.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm not saying he's entirely responsible for it, but Jordan was either the first or one of the first people from the U.S. to talk to David Icke about whatever it was he was doing at the time. So, and I think that was, I might be way off on this, but I mean, I know that's true.
For anyone out there that doesn't know, like Jordan Maxwell was a huge figure, and I ended up, I still to this day do not know the extent of Jordan Maxwell's influence in terms of, he's saying conspiracy research, but like alternative history.
Yeah, well, look, all I gotta say to some people who are deeply read into that stuff is one thing, and that is that he was a personal friend of Manly P. Hall. So that's the end of the story as far as most people are concerned. If you know who Manly P. Hall was, and you know about Manly P. Hall's archive, and the fact is that Jordan had some of Manly P. Hall's personal notebooks that were left to him when he died. And those things were stolen from Jordan before he died, just for the record. Physically stolen from him.
Manly P. Hall and Jordan Maxwell, they don't get a fair shake with in terms of the written history to this day, right?
No, not at all. But if you look into it a bit, if people look into it and look into the archive that Manly P. Hall was putting together and some of the rarefied information that was there physically in one place, we're not talking about internet stuff. We're talking about books and manuscripts and ancient papers and things like that, which he had assembled. There's a lot there.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. To study, and it's really mind-blowing.
And you had a personal relationship with, I don't know about Manly P. Hall, but at least Jordan Peterson, you knew the man, right?
Well, Jordan and I had a friendship on a certain level. I wasn't one of his closest friends, but I was a friend of Jordan's, in my opinion. But
you were fairly close, from what I understand, right?
There was something there. I wouldn't say I was his best buddy. I really, because here's the thing. I never actually physically got in the same space with Jordan. Him and I were always apart, no matter what, even though we were supposed to have met a couple of times. And we did not. It just didn't work out because of different things.
But you still have that towards the end of his life. You did play a part.
Well, a little bit. I mean, I don't think anybody else did the extensive types of interviews and stuff like that. And apparently, I had information about things that was only given to a very select few people about stuff. I'm really sad about it, though.
I just want to make that known because there were apparently, from my other research I've done in the past, there were people around him that were not on the up and up, so to speak.
Well, there's people to this day. There's people to this day still selling his stuff that pretty much stole his stuff that were profiting off of him and everything else. And he even tried to take him to court and lost. Where they've been profiting off of him. They claim to be, we're the official site of Jordan Max. They're not. Jordan's official site is gone.
Meanwhile, he was on his deathbed, and he had these vultures around him, is what I'm saying. And you were not one of these vultures.
No, I was not one of those guys. There are people that physically stole things from him, that took money from him, that robbed him of just about everything. And the only thing I ever did monetarily with him is give him a couple of bucks. And outside of that, and it wasn't much, but I mean a little bit because he just needed something. And outside of that,
no, but Chuck, monetarily aside, you actually were one of the last people to actually do a few interviews with him on the up and up, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, there's that, and I never profited.
Because I found that out after the fact. Yeah, no, you don't get enough credit.
Well, I never profited a dime because I want to make sure that that's very clear. I never profited a single dime. As a matter of fact,
I've heard that there were people around him that actually stole from him and made money off of him as he was dying and when he died.
Right.
And you weren't one of those people.
No,
I found that out after the fact.
Yeah, not at all. As a matter of fact, I was the only thing that was ever presented to me is there was a book contract where I signed any rights or any claim that I would have over to something that was a part that I could have made a claim to. I signed it over to Jordan. Whatever was going to be made is his.
Yeah, but
I didn't even want
what I'm saying is, what I'm saying for the people out there is, you actually have a few interviews with him when he was actually very sick, and you to this day, as far as I know, have never released it to the public, right?
No, and I won't.
And that says a lot.
They don't.
That's all I'm saying. That says a lot.
He was impaired, and I don't feel good about ever bringing that out to anybody. He was impaired at the time. So I don't want to do that.
That's all I wanted to say. That's
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Anyway, look, we've kept Jimmy, and I don't see anybody else having called in, but I know we kept Jimmy on hold a long time here. He's probably asleep over there. Let me see. What time is it, by the way? Got into long conversations here, and I probably just messed everything up. What time is it? Is it 10:30? BP, is it 10:30? Dear God, I might have lost BP. That's okay. Anyway, guys, I'm going to put Jimmy James on, and if anybody else calls in, I'll keep this going for a minute. But if not, we're going to probably close out the show here shortly. So sorry about the long delay. Jimmy, I'm staying on the air to make sure that you at least get back in. So anything you want to throw on here or get into before we're done? I think BP is actually gone. He had to get going.
No. Well, yeah. Chris was bringing up a lot of good things there. Well, your first question about OJ. Really, the question is, did the jury do the right thing for the right reasons? Because 80% of all cases are circumstantial. And this thing goes way beyond even that. The circumstances, DNA, this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Do I personally think OJ did that? Practically decapitated that woman? Yeah, I do.
I agree with you.
Proof. Because it's also a fact that Detective Furman contaminated that scene. I think that's pretty much everyone agrees with that. That supposed glove and stuff, it stunk. And so the jury, in my mind, should have probably declared a mistrial. And sadly, now that OJ's dead, I've been listening to them on various shows saying horrible, something I never wanted to hear, that they just let OJ off because of the Rodney King verdict, which is sad. But yes, they should have done something in the vein that they did because, well, the evidence was all contaminated. Honestly, I probably would have also acquitted, but for the right reasons.
Mm.
It's sad that these people did it for racial, bizarre reasons, but they did ultimately come up with the only legitimate decision you could make because the evidence was extremely contaminated. And that Henry Lee guy, I remember him. What a joker.
Yeah, what a mess that guy was. And I'll tell you something else just real quick. Not only was there that contamination by Furman, but the truth is there was contamination at the lab. There was there was all sorts of missteps with the investigation. So, you know, is it a right verdict? It's hard for me to tell because of the circus that was going on. But a bottom line is I'm fairly convinced he did it, though. Still, just like you. You know, yeah, he probably did it, right? You see why I say he probably did it?
Right.
But, yeah, I agree.
Sure, just by look. Yeah, it's not like we can know 100%, 99%. But you look at the circumstances, and golly, you know, how many other people would want to chop this broad's head off practically?
Mm.
And he was an athlete. He's a very strong man, or was at the time, arthritis or not.
Right.
And he was highly medicated at the time. But that's just kind of my thoughts on the OJ thing. And on the Hunt thing, I just really, there's just something about this, June 1972. It's very weird. I mean, let's really put this in perspective. J. Edgar Hoover dies 2 weeks before Watergate, just drops dead in his home, which I know he wasn't a young man. He was 65, but I don't know. It's weird. His documents and whatnot all disappear. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks later, it's the Watergate bungle. It's weird. Hunt's involved in that. And looking back at the documents, I'm shocked just how much Hunt was involved with the Cuba projects. Now, we know that he was in Langley when Kennedy was shot, so obviously he didn't participate. But he definitely had a lot of contact with a lot of people who probably had first or second-hand knowledge. And, yeah, I agree with you 100%, Chuck. I mean, you just look at the video, and you could practically see. So, Dad, for our book, let's, we'll put a historical fiction book together where you actually were involved. How would you think it would play out? You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you were to create this conspiracy and you wanted to write it into a book and you wanted to put, yourself and LBJ in it, how would you do it? It almost seems like that part is left off of the video, right? I mean, it just seems that way. And what can you say? It's a lot of stuff. And yeah, people ran around, oh, the big event, that's the code word. And I'm like, the big event, that's a general statement. That's like saying, we're going to the big show. The operation.
Big event.
Yeah, no, that's not what it was called. Come on. I mean, it was silly. It was very, very silly. And I understood why they ran with it, but it was like, at the end of the day, a guy like Cord Meyer is going to run this? No.
You know what? Who was the only other CIA officer who ran on the beaches on the Bay of Pigs along with Rip Roberts? Wasn't that Eastman? Who just happened to have been named by that CIA guy who went strictly through the records, and that was his best guess. I think his name was Eastman.
Yeah, but see, again, it depends on what premise you want to start with, right? If you start with, it's like if you're Stephen King and you start with the premise that Oswald did it. Okay, you're going to go in a certain direction, and then he has to add time travel in there, because he's Stephen King. But, I mean, realistically, you know what I'm saying? It just becomes, look, it's clearly a work of fiction, utilizing real people. I mean, Robert Tannenbaum had done pretty well with a book. I think that's his name. The guy who ended up being the deputy chief counsel to the HSCA. You know, the cop from New York. You remember him? And he wrote an interesting blended, you know, sort of like historical fiction book. And you use real people. It's like, you know, turning Abe Lincoln into a vampire hunter. Why not? But it doesn't mean that it's got any validity. You know what I'm saying? That's about the level that I see this E. Howard Hunt, you know, deathbed confession is about at the level of Abe Lincoln vampire hunter, Jimmy. That's what I see.
I agree. Oh, I absolutely agree. I'm far more fascinated what he was up to in the early 70s.
Yeah, me too.
And particularly, I want to know what he was up to with old Jim McCord. I want to know what the hell's going on there. And as far as these you know, I care less what St. John Hunt says. But if I want someone, a real witness, and they try to make me pay money, that's not going to work. I'll go look through the documents, find where they contradicted their statements, and then I'll file a petition to perpetuate testimony, little bastards.
Yeah, I got you. But, you know, but it's too funny.
Me for $500.
Yeah, but it's too funny because you notice, though, I knew exactly how much money it was because I got the same. I got that offer, too. Look, it's like back when RFK Jr. was not looking to be out in public, right? He was asking for $25,000 to show up, RFK Jr., for events. If you wanted him to show up for an event, you could have paid him to go anywhere pretty much to speak on one of his topics. But he wanted $25,000. You know, I don't know what his speaking fee is today, but that was, you know, the same amount of money that, guess what? He asked John Barber for that money when John tried to get him to come out and talk about his dad's, you know, assassination. $25,000. And John was almost going to raise it and try and bring him there to Vegas for that gathering. And then didn't.
Oh, my goodness.
But this $500 amount. Yeah, this $500 amount.
RFK's asking?
Yeah,
wow.
he was like that.
I'm sorry. Oh.
$25,000, yeah. Ask John Barber.
I can't. Well,
message.
I guess he does got a campaign, and he's got to pay for his own security. I guess he's paid like a couple million so far for that.
Well, but there you go. Like, if a guy like that is worried about having security and got to cover travel, I guess it does come up $25,000, right? Because you got to have your security come with you and everything else. But look, these guys asking for $500 fees, this is not all that unusual because, like I said, it was the standard fee. And I know that from a couple of friends directly. A friend of mine, Frank Minucci, a guy you probably never heard of, he was on, what do you call it, HBO Mob Stories. That's the biggest famous thing, and he had a role in Carlito's Way. He plays the gangster that they drown off of the in the river there off of the prison barge. He's that gangster in that movie. But he was a Hell's Angel and connected to some underworld people and this kind of thing. And he became one of these motorcycle riding preachers later in life. And he was in the movie Ghost Dog with, God, who was that guy? I forget who the guy was in that movie. Ghost Dog is the name of the movie. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, what's that?
Was the movie British? Did it have Jason Stamos?
No, it was.
Before he was famous.
No, it was a black guy. Let me look up the movie Ghost Dog real fast because he was one of the. But and they offered him a role in The Sopranos at one point too. Yeah, I mean, again, this was a guy who was a friend of mine. But when the National Enquirer came out to interview him to do a main story because, Beretta had called him up in the middle of the night. Remember there was a story about Hollywood stuntman was approached to do the hit on Beretta's wife? That was my friend, Frank Minucci. Yeah. So the Enquirer came out to interview him, and that's the standard fee, $500, and they did a big spread on him in the Enquirer. They came out to interview him in Whiting, New Jersey. You could probably still find the article online somewhere. But let's see, Ghost Dog movie. Let me find out who the star was. I know it's a name I should remember off the top of my head, and I can't remember who it was that was in it. Let's see, Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. with Forrest Whitaker. That's who was in that movie. Sorry. Forrest Whitaker, 1999. Anyway, Brother Frank was a guy I knew, and that's the name of the book about his life. Brother Frank was a guy I knew around that time. And like I said, he had gotten a couple of acting roles and this and that. But $500 is what the National Enquirer paid him to tell him about, Beretta there calling him in the middle of the night, asking him to kill his wife. So that's what went on there. Because, he's like, hey, I know you know some heavy hitters. Get me in touch with, or maybe you want to do it. I need to get rid of my wife. Yeah. So, just saying, that was a guy I knew.
Yeah, but like these historical characters, like the Rabbi Beckham, he tried to get money from Professor Mellon, which she said no, because then it's worthless.
Right.
That can't be considered evidence.
Right.
So, what? That son of a bitch, he needs to go and talk in front of a federal judge and give us a rundown of his life. Right. The stuff he told Congress in return for clemency, he was forced to perpetuate testimony to Congress in which he was absolutely supposed to list everything, dot every I, and make no mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the stuff he said earlier, there's some contradictions. So right there, he's going to talk.
Well, that's the thing. I had this conversation with a researcher whose name you would immediately recognize recently about, look, it's one thing to sit down to dinner with a guy and pay for somebody's dinner to talk to him. It's one thing to say, look, I'll pay my own travel expenses to come see you, or I'll pay for your travel expenses to come see me. That kind of thing is acceptable, but once you start paying people for their testimony or whatever, it taints it automatically because, now they've got to come up with something that's worthy of the fee that they charged you, and first of all, I can't afford that. But secondly, even if I could, would it be worth it to get, a creative story? Well, I just wanted the $1,000 or I wanted the $500 or whatever. Who the hell wants to do that? So, what can I say? It is the reality of it. There are people out there that'll ask for a fee for their testimony, and it is what it is. Anyway, Jimmy, look, I'm out of time because I've actually run overtime tonight, and I got to go do a couple other things, but I appreciate you for calling in. Thanks to Chris for calling in. Thanks to B. Pete for co-hosting. I appreciate all you guys who have listened, and if you're catching this on the podcast, I appreciate you as well. Believe me, I'm just as thrilled with anybody who downloads and takes a listen to any of this stuff I do. And if you're hearing this over the weekend, on Monday, I could use just a little help taking care of the last of 2 bills. I've got most of the money set, but I'm a little short. So if you kick in something and you want a little extra, zip folder of some extra files, I'll be more than happy to throw them to you if you got a couple of bucks to kick in, just so I can cover this annual bill that's coming up here. And that annual bill helps to support the free podcast because it's free to you, but I pay for it. Okay. And also my phone line bill. I bounced my last payment to it. So I owe them, and I got to pay that off before they cut off my phone line, which I don't want them to do. So if you kick in and you want a little extra audio file with some rare audios, I will definitely send them your way, and more than happily if you click on the donate button at Ochelli.com and just do that through PayPal. I just need a few dollars to get over that hump, and also it would help if I had a couple of bucks to, be able to buy a pack of cigarettes tomorrow, this kind of thing as well, because I've got this money saved up that I need to put on the bills. So if you want to help out with that, I appreciate you. That's for sure. And I appreciate you guys for listening. If you share the show, it's helpful. If you comment on it, if you follow us online, anything you do is helpful to raise the profile of this show and this little mini network that at the moment only contains myself and Franz and Uncle. But you never know. We might be looking to expand that. And you might have noticed on the live stream, the 24/7 radio stream, we've added a couple of things. Now I'm adding the monologues from the new prisoners. A few other things are coming up where people have asked me to add their MP3s to the radio station. So we'll be changing things up there. And I do want to get back to doing some short attention span DJ theaters on here as well. But those can't become podcasts. We can only replay them on the radio station, the online radio station. So that's what we'll do. Plus the Ochelli Effect itself. Plus we're recording some book readings. We're recording some other interviews that won't be technically part of the show, but it'll be out there available for you one way or another and be part of what it is that we do put on the 24/7 unique radio station, Ochelli.com radio. It's available on your Apple devices through Apple Radio, TuneIn, or various radio apps, as well as a podcast afterwards, plus the Age of Transitions, Uncle the broadcast or podcast, depending on when it's running, et cetera, and you never know. I might add another host or two before the year is over. And coming very soon, we're going to have discount tickets for the Lancer Conference, which will be held on the 22nd this year. And I'm going to MC that conference again. And we're going to have discount tickets for Ochelli Effect listeners exclusively. So that's the way that's going. And I'm involved in the planning on that. And if you got ideas, by all means, blindjfkresearcher@gmail.com is my email address. Love to hear your ideas. Love to hear from you in any way, shape, or form. That's also my PayPal address. So there you go. Help me out so I can help you out. After all, you would be more than happy to give a tip to a pizza delivery guy or your Grubhub guy or whatever. You calculate in a little tip, right? When they're delivering you some food, even if it is terribly GMO'd and barely recognizable, and God help you if it's in one piece by the time they get it to you, you give them a tip. How about giving me a tip every now and then? For those of you that are not regular supporters and not already receiving the decade's worth of an archive in your email every month, if you're not doing that, or if you are doing that and you want to kick in a little extra, I'll kick you something extra, and let's keep working together to get at the truth. Because like I said, if you're willing to give that to somebody who's delivering you food, then how about the person who's delivering you some information, unique entertainment, conversations, and obviously exposure to dialogue and awareness about other media, other projects. I'm going to have a video interview with David Mantic soon about a very specific topic regarding the medical evidence. I plan to have Robert Groden on the show soon. That's your JFK stuff, but I've also got people that are involved.
Goodbye.